I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, 6 o'clock, Thursday the 17th of August. Today, we're taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street today. It's got more than 280,000 of you signed up, determined to make sure that cash is saved in the United Kingdom.
In other big news today, students across the country are eagerly awaiting their A-level results as grades are expected to drop for a second year running. This comes after the pandemic led to a spike in top marks.
So a huge day in sport yesterday, so the Lionesses are through to the World Cup final, and I will tell you why they will manage to beat Spain with my fingers crossed and not tempting fate in the slightest.
There we go.
Yeah, we shall see. Also coming up for you, we've got your very latest forecast.
After a good dose of summer yesterday for many of us, will that becoming a repeated pattern over the next few days? Join me later for the full weather details.
Oh, Jonathan, that's an outfit. Good morning, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News.
We're going to be talking about A-levels very, very shortly. Just to say, if you are of that age and you're up bright and early this morning biting your fingernails, don't worry.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Best of luck.
Hope you get the results you want. If you don't, the world will not come to an end. You'll manage. It's all part of life, and you will be all right. But don't panic. And I know it's an awful thing. I remember mine well back in 1992.
God, I don't remember what year I got my A-levels. Yeah.
A little later than that.
Oh, yeah.
Not by much, though.
About a decade.
Yeah, that's about right. But it was... I remember being really nervous that day.
Yeah, I remember being
nervous.
really nervous. Yeah, it is a nerve-wracking day.
It's not fun.
But yeah, as you say, it's just one of many milestones in your life, and nothing is insurmountable. But we're wishing you all the very best of luck. I think it's, 2 hours till the envelopes get opened, and everybody's ready. And get your phone ready in case you need to go through clearing. We'll have all the details on that coming up later on in the programme.
We certainly will. Now, it's a big day for GB News, actually, because we are set to deliver a petition to the Chancellor this afternoon on behalf of nearly 280,000 of you who've joined our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
Yes, with more than 5 million adults in Britain still reliant on cash, the letter's calling for laws to protect its status as a legal tender and as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Well, let's talk to Reform UK's advisor, Ben Habib, who joins us this morning. Good to see you, Ben. Look, I mean, it says a lot, doesn't it? More than 250,000 people have signed our little petition, just making it clear that they rely on cash and they want to make sure it's preserved.
I think it's a tremendous thing GB News is doing to promote the continued use of cash. You know, there are 5 million people in this country who rely on cash trades, who don't have bank account and credit cards and so on. And they've been marginalised, and they're continually being marginalised. And, you know, we had recently, obviously, Nigel Farage's debanking scandal, but NatWest then went on to legislate for, or pass rules rather, internal rules, on the maximum amount of cash you can take out of your bank account in a given period, as well as the amount of cash you can deposit into your bank account. It's a complete discrimination against those people who use cash. And it's almost as if they're making you think that by using cash somehow you're not really behaving properly. You know, there's a kind of, I don't know whether you feel this, but there's a kind of implied sense that you might be doing something dodgy just because you wish to deal in cash. But some people have no option, as I mentioned. They don't have bank accounts and they have to use it. And it says, if you pick up, I picked up my £10 note, I've got it here this morning, and it says, words to, if I could put my glasses on, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £10 for this £10 note. But of course, you know, if we move to a society where cash is discriminated against, where restaurants refuse to take it, shops refuse to take it, in effect, that promise on the back of a £10 note and all other legal tender becomes a meaningless promise.
And Ben, you're absolutely right. That implication that in some way you're trying to avoid tax or, you know, using your cash for the black market is totally there. And I think also inherent in the kind of move away from cash is a sort of hidden, we talk about digital exclusion. There's an ageism in it all as well. A lot of older people aren't wanting to use online banking, aren't wanting to have faceless banks all the time. They want cash, they want face-to-face contact in the way that it used to be provided, and this is really important that we keep that contact with physical tender.
It's very important. I mean, there are two aspects to it, and that is a really crucial one. That's one of the two really crucial aspects, and then the other one is moving towards a kind of police state where I don't want to sound conspiratorial, particularly at 6 a.m., but you know where private companies and therefore anyone who gets hold of their data, and we get data breaches all the time, have a complete visual understanding of where you've been, what you've done, who you've seen, how you've spent your money. They'll have a complete audit trail of your behaviour. So if anyone fears being tracked, well, you know, the way to do it is how you spend your money.
It is. I mean, it's one of those things that I think a lot of us hadn't even given much of a thought to. And it's been highlighted in a way by Nigel and the debanking scandal, because, of course, when you put your cash into a bank, it all just becomes noughts and zeros, doesn't it?
It does.
But the issue that there is this element of control that we just didn't realise, most of us, that existed. They can limit what you can access. They can limit your ability to have an account. It's our money at the end of the day. We should be able to do what we want, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. You should be able to march into a bank and withdraw your entire savings if that's what you want. And you can't actually do that nowadays. Most banks will refuse to give you, you know, depending on how much cash you've got, refuse to give you more than a certain amount of cash. What is ironic, of course, is we're heading towards central bank digital currencies, and that'll be the ultimate in government control if that comes in, because that won't even be cash moving through the digital system between banks and purveyors of goods. That will be the government having a log of precisely what cash you, Ben Habib, own and where you take it, where you spend it. It won't even go through the banking system. It'll be a direct relationship between the individual and the government that will control the ledger of who has how much cash and how it's being dispersed. And then, of course, the government can do whatever it wants. So, for example, it could legislate for negative interest rates. At the moment, governments can't really cut interest rates below zero, because if they do that, you just take your cash out of the bank, put it under your mattress or find some other place to put it to avoid paying the bank money in order to keep your cash in it. But if the Bank of England decided, having introduced the CBDC, that it wanted to take interest rates into negative territory, you'd have no ability to resist that move. You would be paying money literally to have money. Alternatively, they'd be able to legislate against you spending money on certain items. If they thought, for example, the housing market was getting hotter than any other part of the economy, they could say no more purchases of houses. You can see where this goes. It's the micromanagement of how you spend your wealth. And we've seen the state increase its interference in our private lives dramatically over the last 25 years. You know, we're a very highly regulated society now, and this would be the next step. Cash is a mechanism for freedom. So I hope that the petition you've launched, does have its effect.
Yeah, and it will now trigger a debate, and we'll be delivering this petition to Downing Street today. What do you think they're going to make of it?
Well, Downing Street will do, I suspect, what Downing Street always does with petitions. It's a significant petition. You need over 100,000 to have it heard in Parliament. So it will be heard in Parliament, but probably in an antechamber rather than in the main chamber. And they'll find a way, I suspect. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but they'll find a way, of stepping around it, I suspect. But we've got to keep up the fight, It's like all these other fights we have. Unless you keep swinging the bat, you will not prevail.
No. Ben Habib, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
I don't know, because what harm does it do the government? What we're asking for is them to guarantee cash, if you like, for, not forever, but, for, I don't know what our end date is now.
2050.
2050, there you go. Well, that doesn't do them any harm, does it?
And it certainly brings people with them. Yeah, what would their justification be for not committing to it? We would like to know. Perhaps we'll find out when we speak to the government a little bit later on.
I'll tell you what I have noticed, because as someone who doesn't use a lot of cash, got to be honest, I'll tell you what I've noticed as a result of this campaign is now the number of places that don't take cash.
Yeah, definitely. That has increased, and we're part of the problem for doing that.
Yeah, you're just seeing it all in all the windows. And it's all about choice, isn't it? I quite feel like getting a crisp tenner in my wallet now.
Yeah, they do feel good these days. The sort of plasticky side to them. They're very neat and tidy.
Neat and tidy. Do you remember the old £1 notes?
No, I don't. I'm afraid, no.
Used to like those.
Apart from in Monopoly, I've never seen a £1 note.
Did they have Isaac Newton on? So you'll be able to tell me. I'm sure it was someone like Isaac Newton used to be on a £1 note. But they were great, but they were huge.
Really?
Yeah, they were massive.
How ironic. The bigger the note, the smaller the tender.
They've all shrunk a lot over the last few years, but anyway.
Speaking of shrinking over the years, expecting a lot of grade deflation in the A-level results today. This is the other big story of the day. Lots of nervous students across England, Wales and Northern Ireland today awaiting their results in just under 2 hours' time.
Yeah, now the results are predicted to drop to pre-pandemic levels, meaning many students may not get into their first choice university. I don't know if there's a significant deflation in results, university's going to have to reduce what they've asked for. So don't panic over that if you're getting your results. It also comes as a record number of undergraduates have dropped out of their courses in the last year. with academics blaming grade inflation.
Well, joining us for a look ahead is the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern. Really good morning to you, Chris. Look, a difficult day, I think, even for those who go on to achieve everything they want. It's nerve-wracking. This particular cohort of A-level students didn't get to sit GCSEs in the traditional manner. Their GCSEs were marked by their teachers, which we know meant that they were a little bit more generous than perhaps by the exam boards. And Ofqual have come out and said, we need these results to be down by around 11% this year. It's tough on this cohort, isn't it?
Yes, whatever I say this morning, let me be clear, I'm not criticising young people, who can only do the exam put in front of them.
Absolutely.
But what we're going to have, what we've had and I've been involved in this debate for several decades, but over the last 30, 40 years, we've had grade inflation. And in the last 2 years, we've had hyper-grade inflation. So today, we're going to go back to just ordinary inflation. If you go back to the early days of A-level, under 10% got the top grade A. Now it's up to 45% getting the top grade A. So clearly, I think probably the game is up for the exams in this country. We need to start again and to revalue the currency. It's a situation where we can't distinguish between the good and the very good and the average and so forth. So we've got to, and I said that in the Telegraph today, we've got a real problem here in terms of the credibility. So in many ways, I feel extremely sorry for young people. And I disagree with the government's watchdog. The government's watchdog, Ofqual, said a few years ago to the Sunday Times, and I quote, all our kids are brilliant. That's the fake world in which we live, which is why we're getting fake exams and fake grades. So it's a topsy-turvy Alice in Wonderland world. Feel sorry for the young people. They're being messed about.
Yeah, but let's stay positive on all of this, because it's disappointing for some people if they don't get the grades they were hoping for. However, the reality of this is, whatever universities have asked for in terms of grades, they're going to have to reassess in the wake of all of this. Getting those figures out today saying all these undergraduates have dropped out of university in the last couple of years because of grade inflation, because they can't hack it, they actually aren't clever enough to be doing what they've gone in for. So actually, this is realistically beneficial for the students of the future, isn't it?
Yes, we really do need to get a sense of reality. I remember when I advised Margaret Thatcher, it's a long time ago now, of course, she said to me, Chris, all that exams can do is test knowledge and understanding. That's all they can do. And when we went through COVID, we didn't say to the driving test should be easier or whatever because, there's COVID going on. So it's devalue the currency, and young people don't know whether they're coming or going. What I would say to many young people is, look, university, it may be great for many people, it is, but actually there are other pathways in life as well, including vocational training and getting a job. So don't get too upset if you don't get quite the results today, because you can make a great success of your life along a vocational pathway rather than going to university. Many youngsters going to university are quite disappointed, and as we know, an increasing number are dropping out because they can't cope with academic work, whereas they might make a very good tradesman or person working in the building engineering industry or whatever, So there's lots of opportunities for young people. We've got a shortage of employees. We really do need more people in the workforce. So don't get depressed by today's results. If you get a place at university, great. But we want to persuade this government to actually revalue the examination system so that it actually means something. And universities are offering a lot of places to overseas students, and that's really quite hard. And we criticise universities, I do, because they shouldn't be doing this. They should be looking after our own youngsters. And the universities say, well, we get more money from those overseas students, 3 times as much. But let me say something else, which no one else is saying. Many of those overseas students are better qualified. We have A-levels, which we send to Singapore. They're much more difficult A-levels. So we have to ask ourselves, how can we get the second-rate version of A-level in Singapore? They get the harder A-level, and they're the top of the world in terms of educational standards. We're about 3 years behind Singapore. It's a complicated world. We need to have a rethink.
Yeah, absolutely terrible to think that not only are Britons being failed in terms of the quality of the education that they're getting, the currency of the degree they're getting, and then being outstripped by people from overseas. But when we're talking about results today, the grade deflation, the increase in kids having to go through clearing, I think 1 in 5 are expected to have to go through clearing because of this grade deflation. And the competition then with these international students is huge because there's a huge funding problem within universities. We've seen all these these lecturers out on strike, haven't we, as a result of all the funding issues? And they need cash, hard cash, from these foreign students. I was looking at the stats. In Glasgow, there are 4 courses for British school leavers through clearing, 665 for international students. That can't be right.
Well, it's really hard, and actually it's self-defeating, because we want to look after our own country. First of all, we want to support our country, and what we're doing is supporting the economies of the other countries by helping their students. I mean, we're going to have some overseas students. I would love to see a return to grants so that youngsters don't have to pay any fees at all. When I was at university, it was for free. We got a grant and the fees were paid.
But
that would
how
mean,
is
by
that
the way,
funded?
cutting
By the taxpayer?
Yeah. Well, it's funded quite easily. You cut the number of universities in half. Far too many youngsters are going to university. So what we do, we have about 25% of kids going to university, not 50%. So straight away you halve the budget, and there's the money.
Yeah. No. I tend to agree. I got, like you, I got a grant, Chris, to go to university, and but you went there on merit. That's the thing. But the idea now is that if you don't go to university, whatever you're doing is second rate, which is nonsense.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can be working as a plumber and you can be earning £100,000 a year or more in London, or an engineer or a bricklayer or a hairdresser or a beautician. There are lots of jobs out there where you can earn a lot of money. And the problem is most teachers don't understand the world of work. They've been through the education system. That's all they've been through. And I worked in industry before I became a teacher for 35 years. But you need to understand there's another world besides the university world. Universities are great for some of our youngsters. We're falling very, very badly behind other countries in terms of providing vocational training. So I think probably from the age of about 14, youngsters should be on a vocational pathway or an academic pathway. And we've got a snobbery in this country whereby we think that if you're an engineer, you're somehow inferior to someone like me who's an historian. It's the reverse. I look up to engineers and plumbers and I just ask them how much they want me to pay, you know. That's the situation where we are. So we've really got to get away from this mindset that it's only about going to university. It isn't just about going to university. We've got to get a trained workforce. That's why we need immigrants, by the way, because a lot of these people coming in can do jobs we can't do.
Yeah, no, valid point. Chris, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. And as Chris, the caveat he put right at the top of that was, you know, this isn't in any way being disparaging against those people getting their results today.
And if you are one of those, do get in touch with us. Let us know how you're feeling now. Let us know how you get on. Maybe even come on air and share your experience. How has it been for you? And are you one of those who's going to be having to phone bash and go through clearing? We want to hear your stories. Or maybe your grandchildren or your children are involved. Share those thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, I don't think that clearing figure is going to be as high as they're saying.
Well, they've released a few extra places overnight into clearing. They reckon a couple of hundred, I was reading in the Times, which they think is an indicator that there's going to be more kids not being able to get those spots.
I just think that the universities are going to have to, if they've said you need 3 A's, they're going to have to reduce it, because if those grades are dropping... So I think you might be all right. I think you'll be all right. But anyway, what do I know? Let's bring you up to date with some of the other stories this morning. At 6:19, and a 39-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of collecting information that could be useful to terrorists amid the Northern Ireland data breach. Last week, data on 10,000 police officers and staff were accidentally posted online, with a force declaring the incident critical. The Police Service of Northern Ireland said they're working tirelessly to address the risk posed to officers and staff.
Prince Harry has released a new trailer for his Heart of Invictus Netflix documentary as he prepares for the game to kick off next month. The Games, I should say. The Heart of Invictus will tell the stories about several athletes, their backgrounds and their path to the Games, and they will be held in Dusseldorf in Germany from September the 9th to the 16th.
A member of staff at the British Museum has been fired after a number of items were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. It's also being investigated by the police. The museum said the items include gold, jewellery, semi-precious stones and glass dating from the 15th century BC to the 19th century AD.
Great story, isn't it?
It's like a movie.
It's obviously outrageous because this is really important, precious parts of artefacts. But it is, exactly. It's just like a film. And it's
like
captured the world's imagination this morning. I think it's on the front of the Daily Mail and lots of other papers going big on it this morning.
I think it's quite something. You need to go around this. I hope this member of staff lives in a little flat somewhere that they can go in and find it's absolutely adorned with millions of pounds worth of bits of glass and
How
stones.
can it be that the punishment is just you lose your job? Surely there needs to be a criminal investigation.
Well, there is. The police are looking into it.
They're in. Good. Quite right.
She wasn't listening to the
No,
important
sorry,
words
I was just asking for the Prince Harry thing to be rewritten.
yeah. I'll tell you what you do need to do, though, is pay attention to Jonathan Vautry. He's got your forecast.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity, though, beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Completely unrelated to anything that we've had on the programme so far this morning. Remember all that stuff you have to wear about safe for screen clothing? There are only certain things you wear on air. Otherwise,
you've taken real objection to that shirt.
Oh, God love him, Jonathan.
You're so mean.
Jonathan, I know, but it's just like, would you,
No, I wouldn't.
I'd wear it on a night out.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's jazzing things up.
He is.
This Thursday morning. Do you know who else is going to be jazzing things up for us? Paul Coit with all the news from Sydney yesterday. What a day with the Lionesses. So thrilled, so pleased that we are going to the World Cup finals at the weekend. I'll be here in just a moment with all that.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 6:26. Still to come on today's programme, we're going to be chatting to the Education Secretary. Busy day for her. Students up and down the country will be receiving their A-level results. Lots of focus on whether or not this grade degradation is going to derail quite a lot of students. Big focus on that this morning.
Also coming up, we're going to be talking to our very own Nigel Farage as we take the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street. If you want to sign the petition, go to gbnews.com/cash.
And keep your thoughts coming in this morning. Lots of you emailing already about the Don't Kill Cash campaign. Callum saying, great to hear it's being sent to Downing Street today. I'm very proud to have signed. The UK needs to keep cash as legal tender. And Trish says, I've started using cash again and it is so much nicer for some reason. You budget better and you can see how much you have to spend. And that is such a good point.
That's the point. You can't spend it if you haven't got it in your hand. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.com. A little bit of history for you this morning. Paul Coit.
Me?
Yes,
History?
History? No, not you. The Lionesses. I mean, that really is a bit of history.
It really is.
I had my doubts, I've got to say, yesterday. I had my doubts. Well,
you kept them quiet, though, didn't you?
I did. Well, I had my doubts, but mainly because, you know, Australia, as we kept saying, they're so determined. It was in Sydney.
They're trouble, that's what they are.
The country was wild for the
Silvers.
Yet we defeated all of that.
We did, and it's the first time that an English team has been in a World Cup final, obviously since 1966. The first time an English football side has been in a World Cup final away from home. So we can keep adding all these up. But do you remember when I was saying yesterday, it's about momentum. It's about building, starting slow and building up. And I thought they were fantastic yesterday. And they were cool, they were calm, and against everything that was around them, as we expected, the crowd that was so noisy, Australia came out against it, and England dealt with everything really, really well. Scored early, brilliant goal. Then when it went 1-1, and then you would often think, oh, here we go. But they didn't.
And Paul, what you were suggesting is that actually Australia was more of a worry for this team than Spain, who they're going to be facing on Sunday in the finals. If they could beat Australia, then we are really in contention to win the World Cup. And I don't want to tempt fate.
Can we just...
Australia is the better team of the two.
Well, it's difficult to say. There's always these different circumstances, and the fact that it was in Australia and the fact they're playing in Sydney, all this adds up. Now, Spain, this is a really interesting thing.
We're backtracking now, Paul.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just being really, really careful because I don't really, you said that and it tempted fate. But if we look at Spain, obviously, great footballing nation. They've got great players. They're great individual players. They play for Real Madrid and play for Barcelona. But as a collective, now, it's different because, obviously, it's a team game, and if people aren't getting on, then it can affect what goes on the pitch.
Are they not getting on? Has Jorge got a problem?
Jorge. There's been problems with Jorge.
You two have been practising this.
Jorge Vilda. Is that who you're referring to? That Jorge?
Yes, Jorge Vilda.
Jorge Vilda is the manager of Spain.
We're going to play bingo today.
Yeah, we are going to play hard. There's already been 7 Jorges already.
I'm calling
Isabel.
10.
That's 10.
Anyway.
OK, so the thing is, he's an interesting character. Now, he's caused problems within the team. Now, in September, there was the players of the Spanish national side. They submitted a letter to the Spanish FA complaining about Jorge Vilda, that there was a toxic culture that was affecting them and it was affecting their well-being and mental health. So all these letters went in and there were players that saying, look, we don't want to play for Jorge anymore. So 4 players said that they wouldn't play. 11 said, so then it starts adding up, said that they would actually return. But then out of those 15, they haven't had a name for these 15. So out of these 15, Jorge only chose 3 to come back into the national side. So there's been arguments with players that are there now and the other ones. Exactly. Yeah. It's great. Now, they were beaten 4-0 by Japan. I mean, that's a spanking.
Thumping.
It is. It really is. It's a thumping and a thrashing. It's all of those things. And they came back and won 5-1 against Switzerland. But, you know, I'm just going to lay it on the line here. We should beat Spain. We're a better side than Spain.
Thank you.
We're a more together side. It's the World Cup final. We're the European champions. We beat Spain 2-1 in the Euros in the quarterfinals last year. And I'm afraid Jorge will leave with a very unhappy face.
I'm very sorry, but Jorge is going to be crying into his patatas bravas.
That's exactly what he is.
He just is.
That's exactly what he'll be doing.
Sorry, Jorge.
And we've seen the transformation and the way we talk about football and female football since, obviously, the Euros.
Yes.
How much of a difference is the World Cup going to make? I mean, as a tournament, this is the one, right? This is the big one. And, you know, we've already got the King coming out. We've got the Prince of Wales coming out. The plaudits left, right and centre yesterday.
Yeah.
This is it, right? This is the big moment.
It is. It's a huge moment. If we look at the Euros, look how important that's been. I mean, if we go back to 2015, that, for me, was the moment when people started paying attention to the English side of the Lionesses. This is when we start calling them the Lionesses. And then people start paying attention. Then there was the World Cup 2019. It can only go in one direction. And for those doubting Thomases, and I've had messages from a few people going, it's not as good, it's nowhere near as good as men's football. There's, 15-year-olds could beat them. It's a ridiculous point, because if you look at the way they play, and if you look at what happened yesterday, the football I thought was fantastic. It was brilliant. And the women's game is only going to move on and move on. And there are people that are scared of it. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. People, it's almost like, this women's football, I don't like this, and it shouldn't be. It's not. It's almost like a fear that the fact that it is going to be a success and continue to do well.
I'll tell you what I quite like about it all, though, is the fact we say it's the first World Cup final since 1966. It's merging of the two.
Yes,
and it's just football is football is football.
Yeah,
doesn't matter who's playing it.
Do we say that about tennis when there's women playing tennis? I mean, you don't, because it's tennis. There are just two different
tournaments are kind of concurrent, aren't they, in tennis? Whereas at the moment they're all separate. So it's just like maybe at some point in the future they'll all happen at the same time, and it will be, hit the women are playing, then the men are playing.
Maybe. I mean, it'd be a big undertaking to do that. But I just mean as in the way that people will look at the game, and it can only be good for football, and it's great for the country. Yeah, and it's 11 o'clock Sunday morning. That's when the final's going to be, and I think everybody should be paying attention, because they're a very, very good side, and to win it. Also, it was also interesting the way they were afterwards, because you'd expect huge celebrations. Yeah, there were celebrations, but pretty much after a little bit of that, they were down the tunnel because they knew had a job to do. If we look at the Americans, they were overdoing it, and that was cockiness, because they thought that they were better than they really were.
We're British.
Exactly. We go in and do the job and carry on.
We do.
And we can celebrate once we win, which I'm very confident that we will on Sunday.
Just because don't kill cash. I know you're a man who likes to have a wad of cash in his pocket.
Always love a wad.
Do you remember the old £1 notes?
Of course I remember the £1 notes. Yeah, of course I remember £1 notes.
Was it Isaac
I remember
Newton
half.
That was on them?
I can't remember whether it was Isaac Newton. There was a change, because there was one someone else. I mean, I remember half pennies. Half p. And I mean, I probably do not remember decimalisation. I'll be very pleased to announce.
71, wasn't it?
So it was a little bit before my time, but but absolutely, I'm absolutely all in with cash.
Yeah.
If I had enough, I'd love to have the wad in my pocket with a little clip around the outside. But it's never enough for me.
My mother once went into a shop when she was little and asked how much the halfpenny sweets were.
Oh, did she really?
Yeah.
Oh, bless her.
They're a halfpenny.
Bit more expensive than they used to be, though, aren't they, these days?
Yeah, I used to like a half-p.
Did you? Yeah, like a half-p. Tiny little thing, but you couldn't really do much.
About the size of a 5p now.
Yeah, they're tiny, really little things. Yeah, absolutely.
You don't remember the olden days,
The director just said in
you remember the green
what
knots.
are they talking about? And I shrugged, saying, no idea. Born in 82, me, so...
Oh, were you? Oh, you missed it all.
81,
long
me.
gone by then.
1881.
No, age. I'm not saying
you're
right.
Trish remembers. Actually, no, Philip, he says, getting a £1 note as pocket money made you rich for the week. It bought a comic, a 10p mix of sweets and change for the piggy bank.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, I don't know where you come from, Philip. I used to get 20p.
Did you?
20p. We had no money, but yeah, got 20p.
Yeah. What did you do with your 20p then?
Put it in my piggy bank.
Yeah, and then did you
always
ever
been a saver.
Did you buy yourself something nice in the end?
No, I just saved and saved and saved.
Did you have because the
one-way street goes into the bank, never comes out again.
Banks used to be able to get piggy banks from the actual banks. I remember NatWest used to do the globe, and there were different ones, and then you'd get those as a saver with a lock. But the thing is, then you'd lose the key, and you could never open the thing. You have to smash it
Now
against the wall.
kids don't know what to do with piggy banks.
Don't know what they are. Don't know what they are.
It's a
Need
strange
someone to
old
put in them.
world.
You do need someone to put in. Donations welcome.
Always. Okay.
We'll see you later.
Okay, I'll bring you something.
Well, staying with the theme of cash, GBNews presenter Nigel Farage is going to be joining us talking about our Don't Kill Cash campaign going to Downing Street. He'll be joining us just after 7 o'clock.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
6:38. Good morning to you. Let's have a look at the front of the newspapers, should we? There's a common theme. The Sun has the Lionesses as England's win over Australia in the Women's World Cup dominates.
Although the Daily Mail going with the gem heist at the British Museum.
That's my phone going off. The Times reports on Rishi Sunak saying he'll ease the squeeze that people are feeling at the moment.
And the Financial Times is reporting on the battle over the Bank of England's base rate.
Let's go through some of those then with the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, and Conservative Home columnist and, of course, GB News presenter, Emily Carver. Good morning to you. Emily, can I just start with you? Don't Kill Cash. It's going to Downing Street today.
Fantastic.
What do you make of the momentum behind all of that?
Well, I think it's pretty good. 250,000 signatures, presumably more now.
More now, yeah.
Reaching, probably kicking on to 300,000. A lot of people care about this issue, more than maybe I had anticipated. There's so many different angles to it, aren't there?
Yeah.
Just the practicalities, ageism, and then also looking at the, the potential for government control of everything we do. So, yeah, it's good. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I wonder what the debate, who'll be talking in the debate.
I don't know. Oh, well...
He'll turn up.
One would imagine.
Well, yeah, Rees-Mogg, yeah. Maybe a bit of Lee Anderson.
maybe, yeah.
I care about it a lot, but not enough to actually use cash.
Well, this is what, to be honest, this is a little bit what we've been saying. I don't want to lose it, but we're part of the problem.
Yeah, I can talk a very good game about, the dangers of a digital surveillance society. But I just can't be bothered to use cash.
I think you have to be quite organised to use cash, don't you? Because you have to go to a cash point. Half of them have closed down.
But it's... Well, I said, this might be a bit too revealing about the Spectator office, but I said the other day in the Spectator office, I said, where is the nearest cash point to our office?
Nobody knew.
And my younger colleague said, why are you trying to buy drugs?
Oh.
Because he thought that's the only conceivable use of cash.
But the point is
Which,
about...
of course, I wasn't, because that would be a terrible...
And, of course, that is not what cash is just
No,
used for.
but the point of it all... See, I don't use cash. But the point is, the choice has got to be out there. The option has got to be there for people who want to use cash.
I entirely agree. I do have some cash on me at the moment. So
do you?
Why do you have cash on you, Freddie?
It's not to buy drugs. I don't do drugs, and drugs are illegal. It was some cash back to give my son, who won. I'm going to give my son some cash.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I got cash back at a supermarket because I couldn't find a cash back.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. You're keeping cash in his, life.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
He'll
important.
be spending it. I only use it for the nail salon and for people who do jobs around my home.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
50 quid, cash in hand.
Well, yeah. Good. Keeps the economy going. As long as they pay their taxes on it, which
as long as they're paying the taxes.
sure they do. I'm sure they do. Let's have a look at the Telegraph, Freddie. We're not going to get a net zero referendum, says the Prime Minister.
No, we are not. Rishi Sunak has ruled it out, the idea of a referendum on net zero, which is probably a relief to a lot of people, because I think
We don't need
a
a referendum, do we?
But, however, I'm not sure Rishi Sunak is right. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm not sure Rishi Sunak is right that most people are committed to getting to net zero.
No.
I think if the polling on this differs. If you say to people, do you think net zero is a good idea, you might get a majority saying yes. If you explain to them what the government's actually proposing, the polling starts to break down quite quickly. And Sunak has come under a lot of pressure from lots of Tory MPs, as the Telegraph said, Red Wall MPs, saying that the headlong rush into net zero is going to cause them problems at the next election. And that's why we saw Rishi Sunak talking a little bit more sensibly about North Sea oil, talking a little bit more sensibly about Ucas and not being so anti-motorist. But he's not going to go that far. He's going to stick to net zero pledges.
Can you imagine the campaign? Can you imagine how horrendous it would be? There'd be pictures of flames saying, "If you don't support yes, this is what the world will look like."
But what is in
Project Fear?
Yeah, it would be.
But what is
Armageddon,
What I think is interesting about this is, as you say, I think that actually, if there was a referendum, the majority of people would probably say, "Oh yes, yeah, this is sensible." I mean, I think it's sensible. It's how you implement it. So this actually gives him flexibility, doesn't it, to actually pare it back a little bit without being too controversial against the Green lobby.
It does. I don't think people understand that it's actually in law, this target.
Yeah.
So the government does, at least in theory and by law, have to achieve this, which may or may not be possible. And they are obviously rolling back on some of the policies.
Emily, speaking of what the government's got in statute, they're talking a lot about their plans. The Prime Minister's given an interview to The Times today. The phrase "trust me" coming up a lot. A little bit of crowing, I suppose, after the inflation figures yesterday. They're very pleased about the direction of travel on that. What else does he say?
When a politician says "trust me," you don't always think the best. Yes. Inflation down, more so than was predicted, which is good, and perhaps does provide evidence maybe that his and Jeremy Hunt's plan is working when it comes to inflation, or whether the Bank of England's interest rate hikes maybe are feeding through, or it could be that we're just seeing inflation drop around the world because of different issues, energy costs, supply chains easing after the pandemic, etc., etc. But it is a point in their box. It's something to talk about. I'm not surprised he's crowing about it. But there's a lot of anger within the Conservative Party. There are a lot of MPs who think they should be focusing on economic growth more, so things like cutting taxes, supply-side reform. But it is a good thing that inflation is finally coming down.
Yeah.
I should bring in my story here because it's got it slightly further down the list, but it's the FT is on the same subject, but a little bit more about core inflation not falling, really.
But do we care about core inflation? A lot of people, Liam Halligan yesterday saying, well, core inflation is a bit of a red herring, really. Should be looking at PPI.
Well, so that everyone's with us at home, when we talk about core inflation, that's with food and energy taken out of it. So it's sort of a bit more of an indicator of how we're doing generally.
Yeah. But then, I mean, I guess you're right. And that food is the thing that most people feel the pain of.
Well, and energy.
And in the Daily Mail, we see olive oil is 45% up on last year still. So that's quite significant, isn't it?
Really? 45% up? It's always been expensive as well, olive oil.
Well, olive oil's always been pricey.
The Daily Mail's, the top of the Daily Mail's list is olive oil.
Yeah,
What's the cheapest type of oil? Sunflower.
So, well, just vegetable oil.
Vegetable oil.
Yeah.
I would think, yeah.
But I do think we need to let Sunak have a little win, because he's doing so badly on the pledges, and it looks like he might hit this pledge.
Yes, but I mean, yes, I'm all for, not trying to bash politicians the whole time, but I do slightly balk at when they try to claim that inflation coming down is thanks to them, because it's nothing to do with him.
It's nothing to do with him, but I still think it's like patting a child on the head.
But he's saying, I want it to come down. Yes, your wish is coming true.
Yeah.
But it's not like your policies have worked in this particular instance. It's the nation's wish.
Also, there's concerns about wages, because we've seen those go up quite a lot. Many would say that's a good thing, because it's keeping up with inflation. But then people are saying, is there a wage price spiral?
Yes, but apparently a lot of that is linked to the one-off payments that a lot of the public sector have had. So it's not a sort of genuine figure.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that public sector pay has now risen faster than private sector pay, because it was the other way around for a little while. And 10.9%. How can you have public sector pay rise faster than private sector pay and expect the private sector to pay for the public sector? It must be very tricky to add up the figures in the Treasury at the moment.
Talking of the Treasury, Emily, in The Guardian this morning, we've got the triple lock. It's all about the PM this morning, isn't it?
Very serious.
But the PM standing by the pension triple lock, which will be a great sense of relief for a lot of people, actually.
Great sense of relief for a lot of people. Lots of angry and bitter young people, though, who are paying for it through their taxes. But it's hardly surprising that the Prime Minister is going to stick by this. It is something that... I mean, the average Conservative voter now is, over 60.
Yeah.
So he needs to appeal to those people. And I don't think Labour would get rid of it either.
Well, this is
But it is extremely expensive.
I mean, I'm just explain how expensive. I was reading something like 10 billion it could go up, and it was predicted in the budget to be 2.5 billion next year
will
to
cost
pay pensions.
Will cost the Treasury an extra 10 billion next year, 2.5 billion more than estimated just in the spring budget. So it really is spiralling.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
But
and it's inflationary, so it's putting more pressure upwards. But Emily's completely right. Once government commits to these things, almost no government actually pulls back from actual commitments to give people money.
No.
Or on a large scale.
But there'd be uproar trying to pull out of that, wouldn't it? I mean, the benefit for the government will be that if inflation drops significant as they want it to, then obviously that £10 billion bill is going to drop significantly as well.
They could make it a double lock.
Yeah.
Or a single lock.
Because it's 2.5%, so they would have to pay 2.5% if inflation goes below 2.5%.
Yeah.
Which it's not going to, I
Never.
don't think.
Yeah.
Well, it will.
But there'd be a lot of elderly people and pensioners who would really suffer if, pensions went down by a considerable amount. But
they would.
Maybe it needs to be a little bit more means-tested.
Well, that's
there are
a very
some wealthy.
means testing is very expensive, though, isn't
it? Well, maybe it needs to be a conscience thing, and maybe we need to lean on people who are wealthy pensioners. There are so many who have huge gold mines that they're sitting on who probably don't need to draw their state pension.
But then they feel like, oh, well, I've paid my taxes all my life. I'm going to take what I can.
Yeah, well, I think there's an element of that. Plus, you can't. How do you give it back? It's like you can't give back the winter fuel allowance. You can't do it.
Well, that's like when people like Warren Buffett say people like me should be paying more tax, and the answer is, well, you can always give it to the state if you want.
Can you?
Yeah, you can
make a donation.
You can make a donation to the state if you want.
Write a cheque to HMRC, Stephen, if you're feeling very generous.
No, I'm saving for my retirement. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not giving him any more than I have to. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to leave it there. Freddie, Emily, we'll catch up with you a little bit later on.
Right, of course, it is A-level results day in
Yes,
just
it is.
over an hour. Tens of thousands of students will be opening those envelopes. We all remember that day, don't we? And we'll be thinking about what they can expect from their results.
Yeah, let's talk to the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, who joins us from Westminster. Good to see you this morning. Are we going to see grade deflation today, as people are expecting? I mean, you can't help but feel very sorry for students who aren't going to get, despite all their hard work, perhaps won't get some of the grades that they were hoping for.
Well, first of all, I think we should say a massive congratulations to students today, because they have been through quite a lot to get to this point. They have had quite a lot of disruption and they've worked so hard to get to this point. So that is the first thing to say. And the second thing to say is don't worry, the number of university places are still the same, and the fact that, you know, obviously if we change the grading system, the grades change back to normal, there is still the same, in fact, even greater opportunity for this cohort of students, because we also have many, many other opportunities as well, such as many more degree apprenticeships.
Well, it's easy to say don't worry and to be encouraging, but these are students who got record GCSE results, you know, the best ever, because they were marked by their own teachers, which we know the circumstances around that and we understand why. We then look at what their A-level process has been like, and they've had to carry on through all the industrial action that you've had to grapple with as well. Really disruptive for these students. And then 1 in 5 of them today can expect not to get their first choice of university because of grade deflation. We're seeing around 11% reduction in those getting A's or A stars. A lot of young people will be feeling pretty miffed, don't you think, this morning?
Well, first of all, the grading system will not impact the university places. So it's very, very normal that the predicted grades that people get, I think only 1 in 5 actually get their predicted grades or above. So this is a very normal part of the system. So the actual university places and the access to university is still exactly the same as it was. So if they were going to, if they'd have got a B and gone to university in 2019, they'll get a B and go to university in 2023. So all we've done is, and this is really important because our exams, both GCSEs and A-levels, are highly regarded across the world, and we just want to make sure they keep that value. And obviously we needed to go back from teacher assessed grades, and we did that last year, but now we're going back to the normal grading system, and that will make sure that these hold their value, and they do have true value.
Do we need to perhaps look, because part of the problem with the system, and it goes back a long time, with this idea of getting 50% of people to university and all the rest of it, has proved problematic. Do we need to have more focus now on those people, whether they do A-levels or not, but want to, you know, vocational training, you know, vocational pathways or academic pathways, and actually just be almost a little bit harsher with it in terms of just not expecting everyone to go to uni?
Well, what we've been doing is actually working up a lot of those other routes. So in 2020, I actually introduced the first T-levels as the Apprenticeships and Skills Minister. That was during the pandemic, but it's very important that we got on with making sure we have really great technical education routes into the workplace as well. So they're new qualifications we've designed with 250 leading employers. And so the second year of those exam results will also be out today. In addition to that, we've been working on the higher technical qualifications, and we've been opening up new institutes of technology. There'll be 21 of those in total, and they again are collaborations with lots and lots of businesses, and of course my favourite, degree apprenticeships, because I did a degree apprenticeship myself, so I think they're fantastic. We've been making sure that there is much broader access, and we've still got more work to do, but making sure that we have 670 now different apprenticeship standards into lots of different jobs at lots of different levels. So if you want to be a medical doctor now, you can do it via a degree apprenticeship. If you want to be an accountant, you can do it via a degree apprenticeship. Cybersecurity, a nurse, a policeman, pretty much any career, space engineer, any career you can think of, you can now access via a multiple route, so not just university. So if you want to go down the other route, like I did, which is good because you're kind of working and you're learning and earning at the same time, but you also do not have to pay the student debt because that is part of your apprenticeship. So there are all of these different routes, and what we will be doing from this year, actually all the apprenticeships are on Ucas, but from next year you'll actually be able to also apply directly from Ucas as well. So we're doing a lot of work in the background to really broaden the options for young people so that they have more options than pretty much anybody who's gone before them.
What about the international students who seem to have more options than Britons when it comes to clearing? A lot of noise and discomfort. discomfort about that. Is that a failure of higher education policy?
No, it's actually a very misleading figure because they took a snapshot on a particular day. So just to put into context, about 15% of undergraduate students will be international students. That's 85% of our universities are basically filled with home students. The vast majority of international students, about 70% of international students, actually come to do postgraduate in our universities. And what they looked at in clearing is just on one day when the international courses have been opened up for international clearing, but the UK ones hadn't. And the reason is because the international students get their A-level equivalents first. So they're basically going through clearing now. So you will see more and more of the home student clearing coming up as we now have our results coming through. So it's a bit of a misleading picture that someone took on one day. But the important thing is 85% of them are home students at undergraduate level.
Gillian Keegan, we've got 10 seconds left. If it gets debated in Parliament, will you support our Don't Kill Cash campaign? We're taking the petition to Downing Street today.
Well, I think cash is very important, and having access to cash is very important. You know, I worked many years ago actually on development of digital cash, but all the way along we always knew it was important to have that option of real cash for many different uses.
OK, lovely. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Here's your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th of August. Today, GB News is taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street after we accumulated nearly 300,000 signatures. It's in a bid to ensure cash remains legal tender until 2050.
Students right across the country eagerly awaiting their A-level results in an hour. That's when they drop, where you can get hold in your envelopes. Anyway, the grades could actually drop as well for the second year running. This comes after the pandemic led to a spike in top grades.
Actor Bradley Cooper has been accused of fueling anti-Semitic stereotypes. This comes as he wore a prosthetic nose in the upcoming film Maestro, a biopic about the composer Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, it's a controversial one. We'll debate all of that for you. Plus, of course, we'll have the latest forecast with Jonathan.
After a good dose of summer yesterday for many of us, will that becoming a repeated pattern over the next few days? Join me later for the full weather details.
A very good morning to you. I'm Isabel Webster.
I'm Stephen Dixon. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, our top story this morning focusing very much... You want to read a view?
I was going to do some views.
Go for it.
Just because, on the Don't Kill Cash thing, actually, because I love it when we get ones that go against the tide, as it were. Steve, hi Steve, says, in my opinion, we really don't need cash. Personally, I'm finding it hard to understand why your petition has acquired so many signatures. But it's a fair point. And if you don't use cash, maybe you sort of think, what's the point? But I guess, because I'm like you, Steve, I don't use it. However, it's about choice. And those people who do use cash and who rely on cash who are finding themselves unable to use it now. And that's a problem, isn't it? I mean, you'd want to use cash if you so decided to. And you go so many places now, I've noticed, where they say, we don't accept cash anymore, card only. And is that a problem? Maybe.
Well, look, we have been petitioning on this. You have responded, and we will be delivering it to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this afternoon on behalf of over 270,000 of you who joined our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
Well, with more than 5 million adults in Britain still relying on cash, take note of that, Steve, the letter calls for laws to protect its status as legal tender and as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Well, let's speak now to Don't Kill Cash advocate and fellow GB News presenter Nigel Farage. Good morning to you. And I suppose you are our case study in many ways this morning, Nigel, because you're a really good example of what can happen if you didn't have cash and then you're debanked. You'd be in a very difficult position.
Well, you couldn't live, could you? I mean, actually, you know, having a bank account is rather like having water in your house or electricity. It is something that you can't live with out 21st century. But the real problem here is if we kill cash, not only do we wipe out lots of small traders all over the country, leaving them at the mercy of the card providers who charge ever higher percentages on their sales, but I mean, what, for example, if you're running a fish stall in a place without the internet? I mean, you know, you've got no option but to take cash. And what I've seen with my debanking campaign is a very, very deliberate effort by the banks to drive cash out of the system. You go to your bank and try and withdraw a reasonably large sum of cash. They'll ask you what it's for. They may not let you do it. And more seriously, you go and try and pay cash into a bank, and they're now putting limits, monthly and yearly limits on what businesses can pay in. So once again, all of these changes might suit people in London, but it doesn't suit the little man and woman outside of London. Longer term, my biggest fear is this. From 2030, we will have in this country a form of central bank digital currency. Rishi Sunak and the government are fully in favour of this. They're actively recruiting people right now. If we get to that, the state will be able to control how we spend our money, and that would be a serious loss of freedom. So for lots of reasons, keeping cash as legal tender makes sense. And I think really, for a channel like ours, that's just 2 years old, to have gathered over 250,000 signatures in short order tells you it's a real issue.
See, what strikes me with all of this, Nigel, is the idea, and we know, because, I mean, look, we all know that what we're about as a channel is about hearing all voices, all perspectives, and having a bit of respect for people that we don't actually agree with. And with all of this, this is about choice. It's freedom. You may not like Steve, who's emailed in, he may not want to use cash, but if other people do, then it just, quite frankly, should be allowed.
Well, of course, and I think we are very good, actually, Stephen, at allowing all sides of an argument, onto our screens and throughout our debates. We're really good at providing that kind of balanced debate. Yes, it is about choice, and we're living in a country increasingly where choices have been taken from us. If we go the whole hog, if we go cashless, if we go central bank digital currencies, government will start to make choices for us, how we can spend our money. And it's already happening. I've had people write to me with NatWest accounts who've had their accounts closed down because they've been transferring money through Coinbase, an FCA, legitimate company, into cryptocurrencies. So already banks beginning to tell us what we can and can't do. So this really is about choice in every way.
Yeah, and, aside from the banking issue, there's so many strands to this, aren't there, Nigel? I mean, we've had emails in this morning from people saying, I prefer to use cash because I get a sense of just how much I've spent. You can see a physical reduction as you spend it, unlike when you're tapping in and out. And there's also the age discrimination issue. A lot of people just simply aren't in the digital world that everybody's expected to live in, and it excludes a portion of society.
Yes, I mean, we all talk about inclusion, endlessly talk about inclusion. We are quite right. What about older people? And what about those who haven't got bank accounts? Over 1 million people haven't got bank accounts, haven't got credit cards. So they absolutely rely on cash. There's no question about that. I mean, look, I really think we've struck a chord. Of course, we'll listen to people with different points of view. But the point about knowing how much money, if you're shelling over the £20 notes in a pub to buy a round of drinks, you think, crikey.
Yeah.
You tap it on a card, at the end of the month, you think, no, I couldn't possibly have spent that. And there are also little practical things, niceties in life, like how would you tip the postman at Christmas if we lived in a cashless society? There are lots of little things like that where cash is still very convenient.
Yeah, look, very good point, well made. Just a quickie, Nigel. If this gets discussed by Parliament, how do they argue against it? How would the government argue against it? Because actually, it just seems common sense, doesn't it, to say, we'll hold on to it for the next 25 years.
The argument against it is very clear. They will argue money laundering. Now, look, we know there is an international drugs trade worth tens of billions of dollars every single month. But everything we put in place through anti-money laundering laws, through banks checking carefully on what cash we put in and take out, all it does is affect the innocent. None of it has stopped the big international money launderers. The whole thing has been a sledgehammer to miss a nut, but that is the argument that they would use.
Great
Nigel,
to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Does talk a lot of sense.
He does, yeah, can't argue with that, really.
Whether you agree with his politics or not, there's some things he just absolutely hits the nail on the head. There you go.
Right, it's A-level results day. So many views on this morning. Dee says, I have 3 boys, none of whom studied for A-levels or went to university. They all earn very good salaries. My granddaughter's just taken her GCSEs and she's now earned herself an apprenticeship with an airline to be an engineer. So there's lots of messages of hope saying to young people this morning, if you don't get the results that you'd hope for, because we're expecting a bit of a deflation in those grades today, there are lots of options out there and not to panic. That's the overarching message today, not just from our viewers and listeners, but also the Education Secretary, who we spoke to just a few moments ago.
Oh, no, we haven't got that. Well, I thought we had the clip too, but we haven't got that clip. But never mind. In the meantime, let's talk to the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who joins us from Westminster. Good morning to you. Good to see you this morning.
Hello, good morning.
What do you make of this? Because although there is going to be some levels of disappointment, we understand that, but actually this is being more realistic in terms of those results and grades, isn't it?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to take the moment to congratulate all the young people receiving their results today. They've worked incredibly hard. It's been a really tough couple of years for young people coming out of the pandemic, all the disruption that they experienced. And I do want to congratulate them and thank all of the brilliant staff working in our schools and colleges who've supported them through those difficult times. But, you know, there are lots of opportunities available for young people that are out there, and I think it is really important that we focus on making sure that those good pathways are available, whether that's going on to university, to an apprenticeship or into the world of work. And I know that the staff working right across education will be doing everything that they possibly can today and in the weeks ahead to make sure that young people have got those opportunities and those prospects.
So interesting hearing Labour say that when we all remember not so long ago Tony Blair, your most successful recent Prime Minister, who is really responsible for the huge numbers that we're seeing trying to get into university today. Perhaps, as we, you know, a lot of people would accept people who shouldn't be going to university, many now dropping out because they aren't enjoying the courses, aren't able to keep up. You've changed position on that very much. Do you regret the policies then? Education, trying to get half of all students into universities?
Education was a major focus of the last Labour government, and if I were Education Secretary, I'd make sure that under the next Labour government it's a big focus once again. I mean, that does mean making sure that young people who want to go to university get that opportunity to do so. And for all people tend to talk about that number in terms of 50%, it's often far less in places like Sunderland, where I'm an MP, where young people have those opportunities. It's about the range of opportunities, and it's about young people having real choices about what's best for them. An apprenticeship, university, the world of work, further study. But sadly, we've actually seen a big drop-off in the number of apprenticeship starts for our young people, and I'm determined that we have to put that right. But I don't see any conflict between making sure that you've got university there as an option for those young people who want to carry on studying at university, but alongside that, other routes too, for training, for study, for the world of work.
Yeah, I mean, there is... perhaps it's developed over the past few years, the idea amongst some young people at least, that if they don't get into university, then anything else is second best, which seems like a really unfortunate position, actually, because obviously we rely day in, day out on people at all levels of work who've not been to university.
Absolutely, it's about a range of different opportunities, and I think also for young people, many of whom will be getting results this morning, sometimes you don't always know at 17, 18, 19 exactly what you want to do with the rest of your life, and sometimes people will try different options and they will find out what works for them. I think it is important that young people get really good access to careers guidance and to work experience so that they can see the range of opportunities that are there. That's why Labour have got a commitment around making sure that all of our young people have access to high quality careers guidance so that they do know all of the opportunities that are available to them and what's out there. But as I say, sadly, we have seen a drop-off in the number of apprenticeship starts that are available for our young people. And as a country, we need to change that, because with the shift that we're going to see in the years to come, around climate transition in particular, we'll need to make sure that we've got a really skilled workforce and that we're providing opportunities, because many of the jobs that will come through that transition will be well paid and highly skilled, and I think that's how we'll compete in the future as a country too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, just a few minutes ago, kind of echoing that sentiment. I suppose another example, you know, many people saying you're so close, the two parties, on so many issues, and this drive towards more apprenticeships, certainly one of those. But I'm interested, if you were Education Secretary, would you look at the way that universities are funded? Not only are we seeing lecturers out on strike, refusing to mark papers, but we have a huge problem with universities not having enough money, which means they're trying to recruit so many more international students that actually they're being put at the front of the queue, ahead of very often British school leavers when it comes to clearing. And we're expecting clearing to be busier than ever today because of the results being degraded after the pandemic. So, you know, what would you do about the way that universities are funding? It needs a look, doesn't it?
It does. The system that we've got right now won't endure for the long term. The government know that, but they've kicked the issue into the long grass and they're not taking those kinds of long-term decisions. We've ended up in a situation where, for young people themselves, the system that's coming in from September onwards will be even less progressive than the system that we have right now. So low and middle earners will end up paying back over a much longer period of time, and they'll end up paying back more often than their more affluent peers at university. I don't think that is right. It does need to change, and Labour will have to work out how we go about changing that system if we win the next election. But international students alongside that do make a really important contribution to our towns and cities. I've seen in Sunderland the impact it's had having a range of people coming into our city to study. That brings with it greater investment, greater opportunities, facilities, regeneration that's available for the whole community to use. And of course there is a balance to strike, but I think when particularly you look at some of our universities, it's actually in postgraduate courses where there've been the bigger increases in international students. So it's not necessarily having that impact in terms of squeezing out domestic students. But we need to keep that under review. We need to make sure that we're providing those really high quality opportunities, university places, apprenticeships, further training and study for all of our young people. It's incredibly important.
It was a mistake, wasn't it, when Labour brought in tuition fees?
No, it was a means of opening up access to university and creating more places. I went to university under the first version of that system, so I made a contribution, a very different kind of contribution. And alongside that, we made sure that there was proper support in place to support young people from more disadvantaged backgrounds into university too. And what concerns me increasingly when I speak to students visiting universities is that the cost of living pressures that everyone is experiencing right now, students are also facing. So when we talk about the number of young people who perhaps don't complete their degree at university, I think some of those pressures are really having an impact, and also some of the wider challenges that young people are facing around mental health too. That's been as true in our schools and colleges coming out of the pandemic, before it, but also the impact of the pandemic, and that's feeding through into our universities as well.
Okay. I just want to ask you lastly, we're submitting our Don't Kill Cash campaign today to Downing Street. I don't know if you've heard about our petition. We've managed to get 280,000 or so signatures. That means it's going to be debated in Parliament. Would you put your backing behind it? We want to make sure it remains legal tender until at least 2050.
Well, I've been contacted by lots of constituents who are really concerned about the impact this is all having, and I think particularly for some of, often for older residents in particular, it's really important that we make sure we're maintaining access to cash. So I think it is about getting that balance right. Of course, for many people, using contactless or using card payment is really easy and straightforward. But I know for lots of people, especially those on tighter budgets or some of our older residents, they would like to keep that option open of being able to pay by cash, but also having access to cash, because increasingly as branches have closed on our high streets, it's tougher than ever for people to access cash, and we need to make sure we're protecting that access as well with cash machines.
We're glad you agree. Bridget Phillipson, Shadow Education Secretary, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning.
Let's talk now to Anne Longfield, who's a former Children's Commissioner and who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. Are you concerned about this grade deflation that we're seeing this year, so we're told, or is it a move back to more realistic standards?
Well, I mean, everyone wants to move back to life as normal before the pandemic, but we can't get away from the fact that kids have had 2-3 years now of huge disruption in their education. And in this country, the decision's been made to go back to 2019 grading, but in Scotland and in Wales that hasn't been the case. And my concern is that for those disadvantaged kids that have had it toughest during this period, for those that have spent the most time out of school, a lot of those in the north, the Northern Powerhouse Partnership have been raising big concerns about this, then it just isn't fair. It isn't the same. They haven't had those same opportunities, and they haven't had that same support. So we should be aware of that. We'll see where it goes today, but I think that's something which was a mistake today. It needed another year.
And, of course, the implication that we've seen of many of these results being inflated the last few years is that students have been going on to courses that they haven't been able to keep up. We've seen a high dropout level of first-year students and across the board. Will this go some way to addressing that? I mean, I know you're expressing concern about it being rushed through, but, could this actually be beneficial for students, that they're not then going on to courses that they aren't really suitable for?
Well, of course, we all want kids to be able to cope with whatever course they go on. But I mean, I think that my preference would be that we prepare children properly for the world of further and higher education. We give them that catch-up support in school, much of which hasn't got through to the most disadvantaged children and the ones who have had the most learning loss, but also that we have the kind of support in place as well at university. It can be around mental health. I heard Bridget Phillipson just saying there, it could be the cost of living crisis, it could be mental health, it could be a whole range of issues, but certainly children can't quickly click their fingers and go back to where we were. There are consequences, and the Public Accounts Committee themselves have said this is going to take a decade to play through. So we need to be aware of that.
In terms of disappointment for young people when it comes to university places, are we going to see that manifest itself today or not? Because, I mean, as you said, there's a differential with Scotland, can accept that. However, for most universities and most students, if they've been offered a place with 3 A's, but there's been this grade deflation, well, the universities are going to have to tweak those offers, aren't they?
Well, I mean, I hope universities will be sensitive to that and be able to have some flexibility. But we do expect that the figures are that around 75,000 fewer A and A-star results will be seen today. And Ucas have been saying that, you know, the advice is to get in early to the clearinghouse, to have option B ready, and to really get onto that very early. We expect about 20% not to get their first-time place. But look, this is a day that's always tense for young people. We'll remember it ourselves. It's a day where, you know, you feel your whole future depends on it. But actually, lots of people don't get the grades they want or don't get the options that they thought they would want in the past. So it's a moment of opportunity, but it's really important to keep those options open and get the best advice they possibly can.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice in itself. Anne Longfield, thanks very much indeed. No, it's not the end of the world. If you don't get what you want, it feels like the end of the world, but it isn't.
It's not.
Really isn't. It opens up different opportunities and other doors. Don't panic.
Yeah, we'll also be debating a little bit later on in the programme whether or not it's actually even necessary to get a degree. Lots of people go on to have huge success without getting one. And, you know, there are lots of different paths these days. So let us know your thoughts on that a little bit later in the programme. But with the time at 7:21, let's take a look at the latest headlines.
A 39-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of collecting information that could be useful to terrorists amid the Northern Ireland data breach. Last week, data on 10,000 officers and staff were posted online. The force declared it a critical incident.
Prince Harry has released a new trailer for his Heart of Invictus Netflix documentary. It will tell the stories about several athletes, their backgrounds and their path to the Games. And the event will be held in Dusseldorf in Germany from September the 9th to the 16th.
A member of staff at the British Museum has apparently been fired after a number of items were missing, stolen or damaged. It's being investigated by the police as well. The museum said the items include gold, jewellery, semi-precious stones and glass.
Time now to get a check on the forecast with Jonathan Vautry.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GBNews weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit drier with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Stay with us. We're talking about the actor Bradley Cooper. He's been accused of fueling anti-Semitic stereotypes. We'll have more on that after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel. Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 7:28. Thank you for your company this morning. We've got lots for you still to come on the programme. We're talking about A-level grades. They're expected to drop for a second year running. Lots of nervous students getting their results in around 30 minutes' time.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking this morning to Harry Redknapp to discuss the Lionesses' semi-final victory against Australia in the Women's World Cup. They're heading to a World Cup final. Historic for them, First time for the country, actually, since 1966. Send us your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, we've got a Hollywood story with a difference for you this morning. The actor Bradley Cooper has been criticised for wearing a prosthetic nose in his upcoming biopic, Maestro, in which he stars as the late Jewish composer and conductor Leonard Bernstein.
Now, the debut of the teaser prompted discussion on social media, with critics saying it's fueling some anti-Semitic stereotypes.
So this morning, we're asking, did Bradley Cooper need a prosthetic nose to play the role, and is he fueling anti-Semitic stereotypes? Well, we're joined this morning by Hilary Freeman, who's a journalist and author.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, journalist and author, as well as the journalist Josh Kaplan. There we go. Good morning to you both. I want to start with you, Hilary, because this is clearly a highly sensitive issue. Do you think it was necessary for Bradley Cooper to have a prosthetic nose?
No, absolutely not. You know, the whole point about acting is that you make people believe that you are the character. You don't need to turn yourself into a caricature in order to do that. Bradley Cooper hasn't got a particularly small nose as it is. So, yeah, I think it's totally unnecessary, and it's just detracted from the film and from, you know, what might be good about it, and his acting as well.
Josh, I mean, look, that's a perfectly valid point. But after having seen the pictures, it doesn't seem... I'd struggle to describe it as a caricature. I mean, is it just prosthetics being used to make him look more like the man himself?
Yeah, that's how I see it. I personally think that, you know, when actors take on these roles, we have a tendency to really overthink these things, and I think sometimes it's just a piece of costume work, and I think it's, in this case, you know, portraying Leonard Bernstein's face, which, as his children said yesterday in a statement they posted on Instagram, he had, quote, a nice big nose. So I think...
Yeah. And look, and I think it's worth pointing out, isn't it, that you're both Jewish.
Yeah.
So this is, which I think is, it's really important, because this is, and especially in the world we're living at the moment, this has to be handled very sensitively. You've got to look at these things in a delicate way. But would you say, Hilary, well, you said it was a caricature. It's not what you would necessarily describe as a stereotypical image, though. I mean, aren't they simply just trying to make this actor look more like a real person, the man himself?
Well, why do they need to do that? You know, John Lennon had a big nose. Aaron Taylor Johnson played him. He looked nothing like him, you know. People who, you know, actors have played Jesus for, you know, years, and none of them ever look anything like Jesus would have looked like. You don't need to look exactly like the person you're playing to play a good part. And I think, you know, you said about the it's not a stereotypical nose, and I think that's the point. You know, there is no such thing as a stereotypical Jewish nose. That is a racist stereotype. You know, there are Jews with big noses, Jews with small noses, non-Jews with big noses, non-Jews with small noses. And research has shown that Jews have no bigger noses than anybody else, even though there is this stereotype.
No, but Leonard Bernstein had a big nose. And so, they've given him a big nose.
Well, but why? But yes, but Bradley Cooper already has a fairly big nose. He doesn't need to put on another nose in order to make himself look more like Leonard Bernstein. It's not a look-alike competition. It's acting.
It's fascinating because we talk about acting and then it broadens the debate, doesn't it, Josh, into whether or not actually you have to either be Jewish to play a Jewish role, whether you have to be gay to play a gay role. I mean, certainly if you were to be a white person playing a black role, there would be an uproar, would there not, if you made your face look black? So is it not the same for Bradley Cooper? Is he not promoting anti-Semitic stereotypes here?
I think this idea that only Jews can play Jewish roles is a little bit silly. I think, frankly, if you look at some of the best performances of Jewish characters from history, you know, you've got Sir Ben Kingsley, who played Itzhak Stern in Schindler's List. You've got Daniel Craig, who was in the film Munich. You've got Jason Biggs from American Pie. These people can play these Jewish characters incredibly well. And I think when you make these hard and fast rules, what you say is you say, we're a separate minority, we're special, we don't want you coming into our turf. And I think that ultimately just leads to worse and worse films.
What do you think, Hilary, on that?
I don't think that only Jews should be able to play Jews, because in that case you would end up with saying, well, only non-Jews can play non-Jews. You know, then you'd limit people to playing what they are and nothing else. But I do think that when a character is defined by their Jewishness in some way, when they're a sort of a giant of the religion, of the culture, that maybe then it is more important that somebody Jewish plays a part. And there was a Jewish actor up for this part. Jake Gyllenhaal was going to do this part, and he ultimately didn't get it. So, you know, he that for me, that might have been a better casting.
Yeah, but here's the thought then. If Jake... I mean, part of the issue with this that I have is, I mean, I had no idea Jake Gyllenhaal was Jewish. I had no idea that Bradley Cooper wasn't Jewish. You know, it's just... you know, so it's sort of... as for me, as a sort of standard viewer, I had no idea. However, if Jake Gyllenhaal had got that part, Hilary, and they decided that to give him prosthetics to make him look more like Bernstein, would you have had an issue with that?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I would, because you don't need... I still just think you do not need to wear prosthetics to be a good actor. And that when you do add prosthetics, it does make someone into more of a caricature. And the problem with caricature is that it veers very close to stereotype.
OK. Josh, final thought?
Yeah, I mean, I just think if you start banning people from wearing prosthetics, why not say they don't need costumes? They can just portray themselves and their acting will shine through in the clothes they're supposed to be. I think it's a silly argument.
OK.
Josh Kaplan, Hilary Freeman, an interesting debate. Thank you for your perspectives. We appreciate it and love to know what you guys at home think, whether or not you think it matters and whether or not you were indeed offended by it. GBViews at gbnews.com.
Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. It's an interesting one. Be nice in those views, though, because we will not tolerate anything which is unpleasant, anti-Semitic. We will not stand for it. So don't even try it if you're thinking along those lines.
Stay with us. Coming up, we are talking all things Lionesses. They roared to victory in those semi-finals, didn't they, yesterday in the Women's Football World Cup against Australia. Coming up, we'll be speaking to former football manager Harry Redknapp for his predictions for Sunday.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant would read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
you should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Right, 7:40. Let's have a look at the newspapers for you this morning.
Let's talk about the Lionesses, shall we? The son of Splashnet, Lionesses win over Australia in the Women's World Cup. It's a common theme, most of the front pages, it has to be said.
Yes, a great picture of them on the front of the Daily Mail, but their main story is a gem heist at the British Museum.
Here's the Times reporting on Rishi Sunak, saying he'll ease the squeeze that people are feeling.
And the FT reports on the battle over the Bank of England's base rate. Ugh. Which sounds really dry, but that's the one that really affects us all.
Yeah, I suppose it's the one that really matters. Listen, we're going through the stories that really matter to you today with Freddie Gray and Emily Carver. And Freddie, we are starting with you with this gem heist because these were priceless, frankly. And, you know, this is a serious matter.
It's a serious matter. It's an extraordinary story. But I have to say, having read the Mail has put it on its front page, there's another story about it in Times. It's one of these stories where you read it about it and you feel you know less than when you started.
It's a bit of a mystery.
Because it's a total mystery. So these treasures going back 3,400 years, sort of 1,500 to 1,900 BC, Egyptian jewellery, gemstones and so on have gone missing. It feels to me a bit like the museum sort of didn't really realise what was going on until quite late and is now sort of backtracking and insisting it's doing a very big investigation. George Osborne. Very often, if you see a story on the front page of George Osborne on it, something funny's going on. He's chairman of the London Museum, so he's saying that...
He's not here to defend himself.
I'm not saying he stole the jewels. No one's accusing George of
How many jobs has that
Although he should probably be asked some questions. But no, another odd line in this piece is that suspicion has centred on a member of staff who has since been sacked. So there's no implication that the member of staff stole it, but if the suspicion is on him, he should have been more than sacked, surely.
Or her.
He should have been in police investigation. So it feels like a very odd story, and, well, let's hope we get to the bottom of it. But we won't today from the newspaper.
Maybe they've all been swapped. It's a movie, isn't it? It's a heist movie.
Someone's
been swapping it.
Yeah.
Paste jewellery or whatever.
Isn't there a film about that?
Yeah, there is.
There's certainly books about it.
Is it called the Museum Robbery? No.
No, I think that's a bit basic for
It's a bit better than that.
Oceans, one of the Ocean's 11.
Well, I know it's early, Emily, but come on.
Oh. Well.
Anyway, Emily.
Shocking story.
Let's have a now. Look, I can feel the anger bubbling away at this. Apparently, there's a new build estate on which they're going to house refugees. This is in the Mail.
Yes, so essentially the village has a new build estate, quite nice houses, quite expensive houses, and the council have bought a number of them, quite a large proportion of them, to go directly to Ukrainian and Afghan refugees. Now, of course, this is massively controversial, not because the residents don't want these people to be housed, but because they're getting access to very nice accommodation that perhaps they couldn't afford themselves. So it is a very tricky one, but it highlights how, well, stuffed the government is when it comes to accommodating people who are arriving, asylum seekers, refugees, migrants, and it's just so difficult, isn't it? They've run out of places to house people. They can't use barges by the looks of things. Hotels are full. they haven't got anywhere else really to put them. RAF bases, they don't seem to be working either.
Well,
People are being moved out of those.
Isn't there, between asylum seekers who are waiting for their cases to be heard and Ukrainians who the government made a commitment to, and they're trying to resettle because their country's still at war.
That is true, but it all links into the housing crisis that we're all facing and people feeling a bit hard done by, and like the government is prioritising asylum seekers, refugees over working people in this country.
But there are so many people that I know who are housing still Ukrainians within their own homes, and there's been this huge problem with the government support for those families having dried up, and trying to find a way forward for these people who have nothing, have been brought over by the good kindness of our hearts, and they do need some state support.
But I don't, if you remember the story a few weeks ago about how waiting lists for social housing, that sometimes refugees and asylum seekers were being bumped up the list. And I think the government said that that shouldn't be the case, or someone said that shouldn't be the case. I think it was the government, actually, to make it a policy that British people should be housed first when it comes to social housing. But this is quite extraordinary that a new build estate, and we've seen this elsewhere in the country, is being used for that when it's just been built. Surely
isn't there some
that should be available to the open market?
New builds that has to be allocated for social housing. I'm pretty sure there's a clause in all new building that requires that. Where is this this village? I'm curious because it's everyone suddenly
Lincolnshire.
Is that near me?
Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire in Langtoft.
Langtoft, oh right.
Yeah.
Well, look, I can understand the frustration there. Freddie, Donald Trump, this is in the Mail as well. He's going to be processed for. These are the latest charges against him.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
But he's going to be processed at a jail where there's a stabbing every day.
Stabbing every day, yeah. That's the exciting twist on this story. I think
are they blaming that on the Democrats as well?
Well, I think there's a lot of this whenever Trump's indicted. There's a lot of talk about how he's going to be treated just like any other criminal.
Oh yeah, right.
And I mean, of course he won't be because he'll have Secret Service. Every president does. So he's probably not going to be stabbed. But
that'd be a rough job, wouldn't it? If he did end up in prison.
Well, that's
a rough job for those. That's a detail you wouldn't want to be put on.
How can you actually imprison a former president? Because you have these huge security details. What do you do with them? But no, so he's just going to have a process. He's got to appear there, I think, before August 25th. And it will be another. He will be indicted. And it'll be another case that hangs over, as we talked about yesterday, it will hang over the presidential campaign and turn the whole I think we thought 2020 was a very weird presidential election campaign because there was the pandemic going on. Joe Biden did seem to just not be appearing. And then Trump is always crazy. Everything with Trump is always a bit crazy. I think 2024 is going to be very surreal.
Well, the twist in all of this, apparently the date that's been set by Georgia for his trial is March the 4th, and Super Tuesday is March the 5th. Yeah. So, I mean, the collision there is just head-on, but he can use that to his advantage, can't he? If he's in a dock in a courtroom and it's Super Tuesday, it's part of his election campaign.
He can use it, although I think as the election gets closer, people want to hear about issues. People want to hear about the economy, America's position in the world, immigration, things that Trump's actually quite effective at talking about. But they might get tired of it if, as the election day gets closer, all Trump is talking about is how, his various cases to do with Trump. Are people going to get fed up? Or does the sympathy for Trump just carry on? I mean, that's going to be the key question that decides what happens next year.
Emily, can we talk about Turkey's voting for Christmas? Or rather, the SNP and their tax revenues from North Sea oil and gas?
Yes, so the SNP has hailed their record North Sea tax revenues, of course, despite the threat to block new oil and gas. This is in the Telegraph, and it's pointing out the difficulties the SNP have between their, what I would call virtue signalling, because they don't want oil and gas exploration to go ahead, or at least new licences. They said Rishi Sunak is wrong to grant 100 new oil and gas licences in Scotland, but they are very much benefiting from the huge tax revenues that have come as a result of current exploration.
if they got independence, which they want, they'd be absolutely reliant on it, wouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely. They already are, and it's quite interesting because the party's Wellbeing Economy Secretary, which sounds a bit bizarre, I didn't know they had a Wellbeing Economy Secretary, he said, this demonstrates our vibrant energy sector and how the UK continues to benefit from Scotland's natural wealth. How does that fit with Holmes and the SNP's, you know, negative attitude towards oil and gas? So, can you square that one?
No.
So they're quite enjoying the tax now, the tax revenue now, but they don't want to continue it.
Yeah. Straight Freddie?
Well, I mean, Scotland's going to be very interesting in the next election because it could, if there's a way of beating Labour for the Tories, then it has to mean letting the SNP win a bit more in Scotland and not letting Labour do. So Rishi Sunak's North Sea pledges, actually, that might cause a small swing towards the Tories in Scotland because it means a lot more jobs and things in Scotland. How will that affect things? Will it actually make the situation worse for the Tories in Scotland? I think a lot of politics, Westminster politics in Scotland now, is thinking about that, you know, what's going to happen.
Oh, that's very odd, though. So, in effect, the Tories need the SNP to do well.
Yes, but not too well, because they are the unionist party, after all. So it's a difficult line to walk.
I'm not sure the SNP are going to win back, I don't know, the seats they currently have anyway.
Talking difficult lines to walk, Freddie, what have the Killers band been up to on stage? Because they've been booed, or more accurately, Brandon Flowers, the lead singer, has been booed.
This is a terrible story, I think, a really shocking story. The Killers were performing in Georgia. They were on stage in Georgia, and Georgia is near Russia and has a lot of Russian tourists and Russian residents. A Russian fan got up on stage and they let him play the drums, and it became clear that he was Russian, and I think some of the crowd booed. And Brandon Flowers said, "Is he not my brother? Are we not all brothers?" You know, it's a nice rock star, open-minded sentiment. And he said, "Am I not your brother because I'm from America? Do things stop at borders?" and all things like that. Sounded like Brandon Flowers being perfectly reasonable and nice, but not good enough. The band has had to issue an apology for having a Russian on stage, which does speak to a sort of pretty disgusting Russophobia that's going on.
It's very odd, though, if I would agree with what Mr. Flowers was saying, if you like. However, if they believe what they're saying, why apologise for it? I just wouldn't apologise. If I thought it was right, I wouldn't apologise.
I think his team issued an apology statement. There's no statement from Flowers saying, "I was wrong."
I mean, look, there are obviously many Russians who oppose what Putin's doing in Ukraine, but unfortunately they haven't had much say in it. And I think it's probably one of those, you know, things that you just don't feel much sympathy towards Russians at the moment because of what's been going on, and not least when we've seen how we've had to get rid of so many from the UK because of all the money that's illegally been sloshing around in Russians' pockets.
But it's a lot like with these sports stars who, even if they're not competing under the Russian flag, are now being booed, or, you know, their opponent won't shake their hands if they happen to be Ukrainian or from another part of Eastern Europe. And it's vile, really.
I never liked that. I always thought that athletes should be able to continue on as normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not their fault, is it? No. As long as they're not standing there, you know, supporting, obviously, what Putin is doing, then...
There was one case, wasn't there? But
wearing this T-shirt, the symbol.
Z on it and all the rest of it.
And there was the fencer, and she was... her opponent refused to shake hands with her, and the opponent was fined by the fencing authority, and then there was a big fuss about that. And then everybody said, "Oh, actually, she is a big Russian supporter because here's a photo of her with a Russian soldier." Then it turned out the soldier was her brother who was going off to war.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're allowed to wish your brother well when he's going off to fight.
Well, Zelensky's point in all of this is that, you know, a huge number of their Olympians, of their star athletes have been killed by the Russians. And why then should the Russian athletes be able to go and compete completely scot-free? And that's why much of the international community has largely supported excluding them, I think, until Wimbledon this year, which has been...
I'm not sure it has any impact, though, that's the thing. No, it might make us feel like we're doing something, but is it actually making a difference?
Well, it's interesting, wasn't it? When all this started, Boris Johnson, as Prime Minister, made a point of issuing statements in Russian isn't he? Sort of saying, you know, we're not against you, we're against your leadership.
Yes, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, do you remember that? He did a video because he's such a popular figure in Russia.
It's hard to know how much support there is for Putin in Russia because, of course, I don't think they do the polling like we do.
Well, they also don't have access to free journalism and balanced reporting, which we know is so crucially important.
Look, thank you both very much indeed. Emily Carver, Freddie Gray, we shall catch up with you a little bit later on. We've got lots more coming up. We're going to bring in loads more on Don't Kill Cash, loads more on the A-level results as well. But in the meantime, let's see what the weather's going to do for you today with Jonathan.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Opens at 7. Just a few minutes to go until those all-important A-level results will be revealed on the dot of 8 o'clock. If you're one of those, we're wishing you the very best of luck. Do stay with us. We'll have the latest on that, as well as our Don't Kill Cash campaign. We're delivering that petition to Downing Street.
Oh, yes, we are. 280,000 votes, very nearly on that. And if you want to sign it, it's not too late. gbnews.com/cash. As you say, we'll see what the Chancellor has to say about that when it's presented to him this afternoon.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Thursday the 17th of August. Today, GB News is taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street. We're approaching 300,000 signatures on that in our bid to ensure that cash stays legal tender until at least 2050.
Thousands of nervous students across the country are currently opening their A-level results as grades are expected to drop for a second year running. This comes after the pandemic led to a spike in top marks.
The Lionesses roar to victory in the semi-final of the Women's World Cup. Harry Redknapp's going to be giving us his take on the prospects for the final in a few minutes.
And it's going to be a glorious day. Here's Jonathan Portray with a teaser.
After a good dose of summer yesterday for many of us, will that becoming a repeated pattern over the next few days? Join me later for the full weather details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Isabel Webster, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
We were talking about the delicate issue of Bradley Cooper, who's been accused of anti-Semitism over his new role playing Leonard Bernstein because he wore a prosthetic nose. Is it anti-Semitic or not? And we talked about that with two Jewish guests a little bit earlier on. Your thoughts coming through. Paul says, I don't think this is an issue. In my opinion, he's just trying to look more like the subject. I sort of agree with that.
Robert says, why should only people of certain groups play the part? In my opinion, the role should go to the best actor. And that's what Karen's saying as well. Ultimately, it's acting, and it is an art form.
And Kath says the most important thing is Bradley Cooper has worked with the family, Leonard Bernstein's family, on every aspect of the film. If they're happy with all of this, then there shouldn't be an issue. And indeed, they have released a statement saying they're really upset that this has caused a row, and they're delighted with the way it's all gone. And indeed, they've praised Bradley Cooper as someone who's paid real attention to who their father was to try to get it exactly right. So they say it's not an issue. But some people have been quite upset by that. So keep your thoughts coming through.
Well, to our top story now, and GB News is set to deliver a petition to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this afternoon on behalf of over 270,000 of you who've joined our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
Well, with more than 5 million adults in Britain still relying on cash, the petition calls for laws to protect its status as legal tender and as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Well, let's speak to our GB News economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, who joins us live from the Albert Embankment. Not far for you to go then to get across the river to Downing Street. And wow, you're not mincing your words this morning.
Liam's on the left there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stephen. Morning, Isabel. No, morning to you, Stephen. I'll get you for that later. Look, I'm not going to mount the inflatable pig and swim across the Thames using it as some kind of dirigible. The ex-Battersea Power Station is just up the road, but this isn't from the Pink Floyd album cover. If you know, you know. Look, this is an interesting day. Little more than a month ago, GB News launched our Don't Kill Cash campaign. Why did we do that? Because we know that over 1 million households in this country don't have a bank account. They don't have debit cards. We know that 5 million Brits rely on cash each day to fulfill their basic needs. We know that increasing numbers of shops don't want to take cash. They don't want the cash handling cards. We know that lots of the tech giants like to monitor everything we do via our debit cards, and then they can sell that information to other people who want to market stuff to us, forcing us to buy stuff that we need to borrow to pay for. This is a campaign that lots of the establishment don't want us to be highlighting, and that's one reason why we are highlighting it, because we know there is a real need to keep the minds of politicians and regulators focused on the need to keep cash as legal tender. It's been really heartening for me and the other GB News people involved, particularly our digital team in this campaign, to see the number of people signing our petition, GB News viewers and listeners. It's now approaching rapidly 280,000 people in little more than a month. Let's get it up to 300,000 over the next few hours. So when we go to Downing Street, when we hand in that petition, we can say to the Chancellor, we can say to his advisors, there is a groundswell of opinion out here. It's not an inside the M25 thing in particular, it's out there in the regions. Banks are being closed left, right and centre. Many high streets are being hollowed out. People, particularly lower income, vulnerable people, particularly the elderly, they don't have smartphones, they don't have debit cards. In many cases, they don't even have bank accounts. They want to keep cash.
Is that in some respects, it's so uncontroversial, isn't it? It just seems like common sense that 5 million people using cash every day is their main source of dosh. Why on earth should we get rid of it?
Because, Stephen, there are lots of vested interests and powerful groups who want to get rid of it. There are the big tech companies, as I said, who want us to pay for everything with debit cards and online, even though we know that 10% of British households are not online. There's a huge digital divide in this country. We know that a lot of businesses don't want to handle and absorb the cash handling costs. We know that lots of banks, of course, are closing their branch networks. Hundreds of banks being closed down every year for the last 10 years. So a lot of people, a lot of powerful interest groups want cash to recede. They want to push us towards a cashless society. Of course, it's inevitable that more and more of our lives are going to be online. But as we move away from an analogue and towards a digital Britain, we've got to make sure that we take the country with us and we don't abandon people, particularly the elderly, particularly lower income and vulnerable households who rely on cash in order to live, work and be members of society. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. We are standing up for those people.
Liam, thank you so much. And, for judging by the emails, Stephen, I think there will be lots more signatures this morning. Let's try and get it up to 300,000 if we can.
Yeah, I tell you what, Liam, have you still got, apart from the one you stood next to, have you still got a piggy bank?
I still do have a piggy bank, Stephen. That's right, I do. And that's why we've chosen this wonderful pig image, Don't Kill Cash, because we are trying to encourage the idea of saving, encourage the idea of people being penny wise and pound rich. And by the way, here's a challenge for you. We need to name this pig. What are we going to call it? Are we going to call it Penny? Are we going to call it Oinky? Are we going to call it Pinky? We want GB News viewers and listeners to email us, not only signing up to our gbnews.com/cash petition, but also suggest names for this pig. This pig needs to be named by midday. That is your challenge.
Yeah, lovely stuff.
Challenge
Liam,
accepted.
thank you. Yes, let's get those thoughts coming through. Now, mind you, I think Penny might win. I think that's a great
That's
thing.
a lovely one.
I've still got my piggy bank.
From childhood?
From childhood, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I had a camel one growing up. It wasn't a
Would
piggy.
you?
And my kids have an elephant that we made them out of papier-mâché and painted them pink, and they're both pink elephants.
Oh, there you
Make
go.
of that what you will. Right, it's A-level results day, and in the last 8 minutes or so, students right across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have been ripping open those envelopes to see just how they've done.
Yeah, the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, has told us this morning that the grading system has returned to pre-pandemic levels in order to keep up with international standards, but it won't impact university places.
First of all, the grading system will not impact the university places. So it's very, very normal that the predicted grades that people get, I think only 1 in 5 actually get their predicted grades or above. So this is a very normal part of the system. So the actual university places and the access to university is still exactly the same as it was. So if they were going to, if they'd have got a B and gone to university in 2019, they'll get a B and go to university in 2023. So all we've done is, and this is really important because our exams, both GCSEs and A-levels, are highly regarded across the world, and we just want to make sure they keep that value. And obviously we needed to go back from teacher assessed grades, and we did that last year, but now we're going back to the normal grading system, and that will make sure that these hold their value and they do have true value.
OK, well, listen, that was the views of the Education Secretary, but do universities agree with her take on all of this? Let's speak to our reporter, Will Hollis. He's at the University of Derby for us this morning. Good morning to you, Will.
Good morning. It's a story that starts with tension and then relief. Of course, the whole exam process is done now, but in schools and colleges across the country, A-level students are opening their results right now. And then it goes back to that tension part, isn't it? Because after they've opened those results, they know if they're getting into their first choice. Maybe they didn't get what they want, or maybe they did better than they expected. So they'll be calling universities, just like the University of Derby, where we are today. This is a sort of purpose-built clearing room. People from across the university taking on the challenge of taking those phone calls. What's the atmosphere like here today, Professor Keith McLean?
Well, good morning and many thanks for having me on, Will. Well, the atmosphere, as you can see, it's our clearing hot room and it's a real hubbub of activity. We're doing two things here. We're taking calls from those students who have been successful in their results and now they're wanting to phone up just to ask some questions. But also, secondly, we are taking inquiries from those students who either have not quite met their expectations of their grades or indeed they have outperformed their expectations and therefore they're wanting just to pause, reflect and see if there is an alternative university degree programme or alternative university that they can join in September.
Students have just opened their results within the last 7 or 8 minutes. Does that mean that people will be on the phone right now to some of those students from across the country answering those calls about whether they can come to the University of Derby?
Oh, absolutely so. That's what's happening here, and they're on the phone to those students. They are providing academic and pastoral advice and navigating them through the clearing system so that they are informed of their options and can decide to undertake a degree programme here at the University of Derby.
The thing about this year is because we've had COVID, we've had this uplift of grades, so people have been given better marks because of all the problems that we've had for the last few years. That's changing now. Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, has said on GB News this morning that it is right for those grades to come back down to pre-pandemic levels. From a university point of view, is that the right thing? Is that what you would agree with?
I mean, I think what we have to recognise here is that this cohort of applicants coming to university in this September are amongst the most challenged in the cohort. They've sat exams for the first time during their A-levels. They're entering into a scenario whereby there is a cost of living crisis. So with the reversal of the examination results, what is important is to ensure that we are providing that appropriate academic and pastoral support here at the University of Derby, and also to recognise that the markers of quality of the university that they are phoning. So, for example, here at the University of Derby, we are top 20 for national student experience. In the recent National Student Survey, We are also the top 20 for assessment and feedback, and 33 of our individual programmes, over 90% of the students rated the learning and teaching positively on those programmes. So that's important for those applicants phoning the clearing hotline to understand the quality markers of the institution that they are phoning.
It's early in the morning right now. The clearing hotline has just opened and it's open for the whole of the day. Briefly, what's your advice to A-level students that are getting those results? Maybe they haven't got what they wanted and they're feeling a little bit nervous about if this is the step that they can take as they go through the next few years of their life.
Well, what's important is for them to take a breath, to pause, and just to consider their situation. Get onto the university websites here at the University of Derby. There's a wealth of information about our programmes that are within clearing that they could come and join. Then have your Ucas ID by your side and phone the hotline. And at that point, your phone call will be answered by an expert advisor that will take you calmly through the process of the programmes of study here on offer at the University of Derby, and will be able to demonstrate that quality of the programme provision and also the pastoral support that will be available for those students. In addition, they'll be able to talk them through the accommodation. We guarantee accommodation place for all our students through to an application on the 9th of September, and that might be important for a student who is travelling a distance and wants to access university accommodation. You can get that here at the University of Derby.
It's a big question, particularly in those big cities across the country, whether they can get accommodation. It is early days, but I know we've got a big day ahead. Professor Keith McClay, Provost for Learning and Teaching here at the University of Derby, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Lots of nervous people at home. I'm sure a lot of people watching as well this morning thinking, clearing, what's that? Well, we're going to explain it to you all throughout the day here on GB News.
Lovely stuff, Will. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, university is the right thing for some people. Not everyone, though. Let's talk to Kasim Chowdhury, who's an apprenticeship and enterprise ambassador from the Pathway Group. Really good to see you this morning. I mean, look, the bottom line here is university is not the be-all and end-all for young people, is it?
I don't think it is at all. And I think the conversation around apprenticeships and what they offer in comparison to going to university are parallel. I mean, time and time again, we're having these conversations on results day about what can students do when they don't get the grades they want at university, but actually apprenticeships need to be discussed at the same time as applying for university. When you look at the array of apprenticeship opportunities available to young people now, it's phenomenal. You can become a doctor. You know, the NHS have launched the doctor apprenticeship. You can become a solicitor. You can become an accountant. You can become a technical engineer. There's so many opportunities through the apprenticeship route that, you know, when you compare it to going to university, actually, for a lot of people, doing an apprenticeship is a lot more appealing than going to university.
Yeah, and Kasim, let's not forget the huge advantage of apprenticeships is that you can earn while you learn. In stark contrast to university, where you go, you pay exorbitant fees, and quite often your lecturers might be out on strike or refusing to mark your work. It's much better value for many people anyway to be getting apprenticeships these days, isn't it?
Definitely, of course, the value of being paid while you're learning, while you're working. And I think what people forget as well is that when you're doing an apprenticeship, you've actually got a proper job. You're not sitting there making teas and coffees. You're employed by an organisation to do a job. That comes first. The education element is secondary to your apprenticeship. So I think the focus on apprenticeships, people really do forget the experience element of it. And I'm just putting aside the fact that, one, your qualification that you do is paid for you. Two, you're getting the experience. And I think three, you're getting paid to do it as well. And then, you know, there's always the debate about, you know, the minimum apprentice wage and whether it's high enough. But actually, when you compare that to going to university and the experience, the qualifications you're getting after an apprenticeship, you are still miles better than someone who's graduated from university.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a lot to be said for it. On the downside, though, the chances are if you're 16 up to about 20, you're likely to be living at home. You're likely to be doing something in your own area. So that might be a downside for some people. Of course, the other thing is, it is looked down upon to an extent, isn't it? We still have the mindset that's saying, well, your first choice should be university and your second choice should be an apprenticeship.
And like I said, as I started this this call with you guys, the reason that is because we're always having this conversation on results day. Why are we having the conversation about apprenticeships on A-level results day? Why are we not having the conversation about apprenticeships at the start of sixth form and, you know, at year 11, when we're speaking to students, when we're asking them, what would you like to do? What are your next steps? All students are pushed to apply through Ucas. And, you know, that's just the system that has existed. And, you know, we take it back to 1997 when the Labour government said education, education, education. And, you know, there was a whole raft of people being pushed to go to university. If you don't do a degree, if you don't become a graduate, you'll hit the glass ceiling and you won't be able to have a successful career. You need to go to university. And that stuck. That, you know, that was a policy that came out in 1997. That policy is still there and embedded in our education system. People think that university is the be-all and end-all of getting into a career, and that is just not right.
Yeah, it's funny. We were speaking to the Shadow Education Secretary this morning, of course, Labour, and it was a Labour initiative, the Education Initiative, that really ultimately led to the situation we're in today. And although she wouldn't say she regretted that policy, she was very much pushing the idea of apprenticeships, and it certainly seems both parties have now woken up to the fact that we simply cannot continue to be sending this proportion of students to university. Not least, I think the Institute for Fiscal Studies said that of every year's graduates that come out, around 70,000 would earn less than if they hadn't have got a degree. You're often better off going down the path you're selling to us this morning.
Certainly, like I said, you know, what are degrees offering young people these days? I did a law degree, I did an LPC, I probably spent over £40,000-50,000, and I don't work in that sector. Partly because when I was looking for a training contract as a young legal graduate, I couldn't find the opportunities. Those opportunities were not available. And even now, you know, the amount of people leaving university with a law degree and the amount of paralegal opportunities or training contracts, there's a massive disproportion there. And actually, that's not just in the legal sector, it's in the accounting, it's in every sector now. People are doing degrees, but the opportunities are not available.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, yeah, it's a fair point.
Convinced ourselves.
Cassim, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate it. I have to say, if I was talking to a youngster, or not now, if I had kids, I'd be a bit tempted to try to push them down the apprenticeship, the apprenticeship degree idea.
You don't want to start life saddled with debt, I don't think.
Well, no, but it also depends what you want to do. If you want to do something which, you know, you are going to require that extra academic learning to get into it, then great. There's a great place for universities and for those sort of degrees. But if you're doing something which actually is a bit more vocational, do something practical.
But it can be both. It can be academic and vocational. So we're hearing, you know, you can become a doctor now through these apprenticeship schemes under the NHS. So, you know, there's all sorts of different avenues out there. 21 minutes past 8, lots of people up and down the country will be assessing their futures. And, well, it's absolutely fascinating day, A-level results day, but certainly seems as though the balance is shifting now away, perhaps, from the traditional model of A-levels and university.
Well, looking at breaking news in regards to university, the total number of students accepted on UK degree courses has fallen, apparently, 2.6% compared to last year. Heck, I'll get these figures in so quick, I don't know. 414,940 have taken places so far, and that's according to the initial Ucas figures. So down a little bit, perhaps not surprising, but that's not necessarily bad news.
Yeah, exactly, as we were discussing this morning. In other headlines this morning, a 39-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of collecting information that could be useful to terrorists amid the Northern Ireland data breach. Last week, as we know, data on 10,000 police officers and staff were accidentally posted online, with the force declaring the incident critical.
Prince Harry's released a new trailer for his Heart of Invictus documentary on Netflix. It's going to tell the stories of several athletes, their background, their path to the Games. The event itself will be held in Dusseldorf from September the 9th.
And a member of staff at the British Museum has been fired after a number of items were found to be missing, stolen or damaged. The matter is also being investigated by the Metropolitan Police. In a statement, the museum said the items included gold, jewellery and semi-precious stones and glass.
I think if I was going to nick something from the British Museum, I wouldn't go for glass, no matter how old it is.
Just don't think it's valuable enough.
I'd go for the gold.
And the diamonds and the
really precious jewels and stones.
I think the thing with this is it's quite often it's priceless. How can you have a market value for something that is a one of a kind and will clearly be spotted wherever you try and sell it?
Well, if they can't, if it's a glass and they can't sell it, they're going to just chuck it in the recycling, aren't they?
That would be the right thing to do.
The right thing to do. You see, net zero. Oh, lovely neck. Does make you wonder. OK, let's see what the weather's going to do for you today. Here's Jonathan.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vaughtry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's a sign of insanity, you know.
Muttering to yourself.
I'm talking to myself.
I just said to him, what are you doing? So don't worry. Just talking to myself. I sit there, go 1 week, 2 weeks. What's up? Counting?
I'm looking at my diary, you see. I'm trying to plan things in. I'm trying to work out how long stuff away.
I know you're getting your teeth fixed today because you've had problems all week with that, so I wondered if it was related to that.
Getting them sorted
You'll get that lisp sorted.
Honestly, my gums are bleeding.
You'll be feeling great around midday. And
Hooray! Yes, I will.
Right, enough about us. Let's talk about the Lionesses. Stay with us. After the little break, we're going to be talking about their incredible semi-final yesterday and what it means for Sunday with the football manager, Harry Redknapp.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant would read my superstar panel. They're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 8:29. I don't know where the morning's gone. It's absolutely flown past,
by.
hasn't it? Really whizzing through.
Things out when you're having fun,
That's
Isabel.
absolutely the case. And don't go anywhere. We've got an absolutely jam-packed programme. We're talking about our GB News Don't Kill Cash campaign, and we are sending it to Downing Street today. We're trying to hit 300,000 signatures by the time we hand it in to the Treasury today. We're trying to keep cash legal tender until 2050.
From desire, mind and senses purified, free from desire.
Freed from Desire, it's that 90s Eurodance track, which is the most popular track for goal music at this year's World Cup for Women's World Cup. I just want to call it the World Cup.
Just the World Cup, yeah, why not?
Anyway, it was written and sung by Gala, and she's joining us on the programme this morning, 9:20.
Still bopping from that.
It's a great
best
tune.
feel-good song that there is, really. You can understand why it's so popular.
Yeah, fabulous.
Right, stay with us. Send us your thoughts. GB News, gbnews.com.
I've got a special job for you this morning. If you maybe watch us on YouTube on occasion, it's a great way to do it, actually. But you may not have clicked that subscribe button, which will let you know when there's new stuff out and all the stuff that we release. And I'll tell you why it's interesting today.
Yeah, why?
We are on 999,000 subscribers.
Ooh.
So, we want to get it in the next hour, before we come off air, to 1 million. And if you think, we've only been going as a channel for 2 years. It was a little bit of a rocky start.
Yeah.
We've got ourselves all sorted now.
Yeah.
If we can get, in that space of time, to 1 million subscribers on YouTube, that will really be something. And it sends the message through to all those people who laughed at us and said, well, you're not representing real Britons. Everyone's voice is already heard in the mainstream media. We've proved them wrong.
Yes.
Have your voice heard through us and get it to 1 million today.
3 jobs, then. We want 1 million subscribers. We want that piggy bank named, and we want that petition signed. It's a busy morning for us all.
Yeah.
And I know you've done all of this already, Paul Coit. You are indeed all subscribed and all
totally
fully...
subscribed.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't there... I don't want to, cause trouble, but shouldn't there be like a prize or something for the millionth person? I'm looking at your mug there with the lipstick stain. I think that would be the perfect prize for the 1 millionth subscriber.
I don't know if you can work out on the thing exactly who the 1 millionth subscriber is, but if there is a way of doing it...
There must be.
We will.
If there is a way of doing it, I guarantee you we will get in touch with you and see if you want to get a prize. But I don't know how you do that, or even if it's quite possible, but if it is, we'll sort of try and get in touch with you.
Have I put a spanner in the works?
You have, yeah.
I have, haven't I?
And
Because you're trying to talk your way through this,
and the boss is watching, but I know he'll back me on that.
Yes, there you go. It's the mug. It's the
mug with the
lipstick stain. Is that yours or is it Isabel's?
We've just hit 1 million.
We just hit 1 million.
No,
just hit 1 million.
1 million.
Hey, we need that song on.
The 2 millionth. We'll get the mug.
The 2 million. There you go. 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Well done you, actually, for being part of the GB News family and for supporting what we do here in trying to hear all voices, all perspectives.
And if you are tuning in on YouTube or wherever you are, we are now talking about the Lionesses.
Oh, we are. Another celebration.
Huge celebration yesterday.
But we haven't done it yet. Let's show I don't want to keep a lid on this.
What are you talking about?
Listen, we've got to enjoy it. And this is what I loved about what they did yesterday after the win is that, yes, there were celebrations, but it wasn't like on the USA scale of going a little over the top. But have your moment, and they did that straight down the tunnel. We've got another job to do, and then a huge game, World Cup final, then the first time. I know we're all talk about 1966 because every World Cup and every tournament we always mention 1966, but it's the first time that we've had an English football team in a World Cup final since then, and it's going to be on Sunday, 11 o'clock.
It's weird. Isn't it weird to think that we, for all the talk of 1966, that we could, from here on in, be talking about 2023 for the next 50 years?
Well, yeah, do you think that may be the case?
It's weird, though, isn't it?
It is weird, because who would have ever thought back in 66 that you'd be going, we're still waiting this long, and there was the old Baddiel and Skinner song, 30 Years of Hurt, which has then moved on and moved on and moved on. But let's just enjoy it, because I truly believe that we will win the game.
So do I, actually. I really think we will.
And I tell you what, let's talk about the controversy, should we?
Yeah.
With Jorge. Because the Spanish side, because it's all about motivation, spirit, the team spirit. They haven't really got it, have they, the Spanish?
It is. This is Jorge Vilda. Jorge, who is the Spanish manager, and doesn't sound like the greatest person that you'd want to be your manager, because there were problems back in September. Now, this just shows that this will help us, hopefully.
Yeah.
That the Spanish players did not get on with him, and there were complaints. There were letters that they sent to the Spanish Football Association complaining about the way he treated them. Now, it was a toxic culture affecting mental health and well-being. 4 players said that they will not play. There was 11 that then that also walked out and then said, OK, we will return should things change. But anyway, there was 15 in all, and I'm throwing all these numbers around, but let's face it, it was a lot of trouble. Jorge then was very upset about it and only brought... How are we doing on?
4.
4 on the Jorge watch. And then said only 3 players can come back. So there's been problems within the squad as well, between the old players and the new ones. And that can only help us. Now, they do have Alexia Putellas, who is the best footballer in the world as far as the women's game is concerned. I don't think there's much doubt. She's 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, but also she's coming back from injury. She's looking very good. They're very good individually, the Spanish, but I think, as what we've just learned about Jorge and his methods, as a collective, that's where the difference is between us and them.
And how's our collective in comparison, do you think?
I think it's excellent. I really think it's excellent. Even when we just saw the celebrations for the Euros, look how tight they are and how close they are together. And when it comes to a successful football team, there's so many different elements that have got to work. A great manager, Serena Wiegmann's come in, and it's been a huge success. And she's been great with the players. She's got a great system, and also the players get on to it. Everything's got to work together. And I've got my fingers crossed, because the last thing I want to do is put the mockers on this coming into the World Cup final. But it is working, and also that other thing I keep mentioning, momentum. It's worked in the right direction as well. So it started off quietly, it's built. They were fantastic yesterday, and even better, hopefully, the weekend.
Lovely stuff, Paul, thank you. Harry Redknapp's running a bit late. But
Is he?
Will you hang about?
Of course I will. Yeah, I love Harry, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, who doesn't love Harry Redknapp?
Well, I love him ever such a lot, even more than most.
Well,
It's almost as fun to say Harry Redknapp.
We love Harry.
Jorge.
He's no Jorge.
He's no Jorge.
Harry is no Jorge.
We got that to 7, 8.
Okay.
8 and counting in Jorge Bingo.
Yeah.
Paul, we'll see you in a few moments then.
Right.
Thank you very
Paul
much.
He jumps on the screen and we hit 1 million YouTube subscribers almost instantly.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you for doing that.
Right, do stay with us. You're watching GB News. We'll be talking about the papers in just a moment.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
.8:41, time for the papers then, with the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, and Conservative Home columnist, and of course, one of our very own at GB News, Emily Carver. Good to see you both this morning. Freddie, let's kick straight off with the Mail, should we? The Bank of Ireland's had some cash chaos
Well, yes, so your Save Cash campaign, I think the Bank of Ireland have taken a little bit too far because they're just giving out cash. They've been giving out free cash.
Well, good, excellent.
Yeah.
There was some problem with their app and their website that meant that people could somehow transfer £1,000 into their account and then go to a cash point and take it out. And so these huge queues were forming at various places, Dublin, Limerick and Navan. And
take it out without it actually coming out of their account?
Well, it wouldn't actually, yes. But in fact, now that they've corrected the error, all those accounts will be debited for the £1,000 taken out.
Oh, well, that's not fair.
It's not fair.
Should be their mistake. They have to cover the cost.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, isn't it actually, what strikes me is I saw a doco on something like this. This was actually a scam that someone pulled off in the States, I think. And because there was a glitch in the system, and they did it for years.
Yeah.
And got about $250,000 out by doing that, transferring it, then taking it out, and it didn't register if you did it before midnight or something.
Well, I always thought, monopoly, banking error in your favour.
Yeah.
You keep the money.
So they shouldn't be debited.
So it sounds like they hadn't fixed this glitch in Ireland.
No.
And someone's seen this Netflix doco and taken advantage of it.
But
I haven't seen that yet.
It was €1,000.
Yeah, it being Ireland and all. Yeah. Emily, we want to talk now about this energy drink, which has sort of raised the question about age limits and things. It had a really negative, significantly negative impact on a child.
Yeah, so apparently Freddie actually knows all about this because it's been so popular with young children, this drink, because it's the trendy drink of choice of YouTube stars. Or they brought it out, they launched it. Logan Paul and KSI, never heard of either of them. Anyway, it's like the massive fad for children. Anyway, this boy, his dad is saying that he nearly died as a result of drinking this drink, and the problem with the drink is that it has absolutely huge amounts of caffeine, 4 times the amount that's in a can of Coke.
Well, why was he drinking it anyway?
Well, he shouldn't have been drinking it, but apparently it's everywhere on all social media. The kids really want it.
Why is a 9-year-old
on social
media? So many questions. Or 8-year-old.
Well, that is true. You could say this is totally the parents' fault, and it does say on the can that it's not for children.
I'd love to say it's the parents' fault, but my children are massively into Prime, and all their age group are obsessed with it.
Really?
So they're 12, 10 and 8.
But they shouldn't be drinking it.
Well, I didn't know that it had loads of caffeine in it. I didn't read the label. I assumed it was a sort of energy drink.
Well, that is...
Sorry. I said that wrong. I assumed it was just a soft drink that was meant to look like an energy
drink. I'm concerned about your parenting
I love it.
It's not very good. I'm not reading the labels, clearly. But, no, it's huge. I mean, the power of these YouTube influencers is outrageous because a few months ago, bottles of Prime was such a hot commodity that my son was trading empty ones in school for a £5.
What?
So he would get hold of a Prime, drink it, which is obviously very bad for his health, and I will now tell him not to do that, and then and then he would sell it to a classmate for £5.
Freddie, is there a part of you that was really proud of him for being entrepreneurial?
I like the entrepreneurial spirit. Somebody's got to replenish the family finances.
So they do actually have 2 versions of the drink.
OK.
So the canned drink is the one that contains all the caffeine.
There we go.
And the bottled drink, which of course is the only one that your children will have drunk, is the one that doesn't have any caffeine in it. So, you can check if your children or grandchildren are drinking this drink, you can check which one it is. But yes, this young boy was sent to hospital, was having a fit, couldn't control his breathing.
Terrible.
So this might just be a one-off case. It probably doesn't do this to all kids, but
the can is bad. The bottle is it tastes disgusting too.
See, I feel a bit mum-shamed in the sense that if this is the cool thing that all the kids talk about, I've never heard of it. My kids have certainly never heard of it. We're totally out of touch with what's cool.
I think it might have just hit the tipping point where it's becoming uncool, though.
Oh, right.
Because I was at a foot match the other day and this kid who's in their team turned up with a Prime and he was obviously showing it off. And they were like, oh, well done, you've got a bottle of Prime.
Oh, it's over. It's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
Freddie, let's have a look at the times, should we? Because this Sunday is the World Cup final, our first since 1966, and it's going to be a busy day down the boozer.
Unlike Emily, I'm very excited about the final.
Emily.
But the pubs are braced for their busiest Sunday of the year, more than 1 million views, but they're not going to be able to drink because of the time.
Why? 11 o'clock?
Well, it's more than an hour, so you might be able to drink after midday.
People like to preload before.
Did you not drink before midday on a Sunday?
Some pubs.
I think some pubs
Wetherspoons you can drink probably from about 8 a.m. But I think most pubs maybe don't have a licence. before midday. I think that's the issue here.
Well, I think there may be I think the government may be forced to bring in a quick bit of thing to ease the licences that day. Why not?
But we were having a bit of a chat in the green room about whether some of the well, I don't know. Are people that excited about the football? Are they genuinely that excited?
Perhaps those people who've been sleepwalking through this World Cup have finally realised this is a big deal. And, you know, I was reading this morning...
Everyone would have been off work if it were the men.
A number of churches are putting forward their services so that people can go home and enjoy the...
Quite right, too.
I find it weird when churches do that.
Well,
I think, like, I mean...
No, it's the right thing to do, Freddie. It's the right thing to do. Look, Freddie's excited by it. Emily isn't excited about it. Do you know who is excited about this World Cup?
You.
No. Well, I am, yes.
Harry.
But Harry Redknapp. Harry joins us now. Great to see you, Harry. Look, this is quite something, isn't it?
Fantastic. I mean, the whole country sort of, you know, bought into it and enjoyed it, and to get to a final again, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great game. Spain are a good team, so it's got the makings of a fantastic final on Sunday. I think that... you know, a large proportion of the country are going to be watching this game. So, yeah, we'll all be glued to our TV sets and looking, hoping England can win the World Cup again. It'll be fantastic.
Fantastic, Harry. And when you look at the momentum that the Lionesses have built up, they've been professional, they've cracked on, they've done the job that they were asked to do. Oh, were you wanting to say something, Harry? Thought you were... indicating. No, don't worry. Yeah, they've done exactly what we wanted of them, and it's been sort of almost textbook so far. And on paper, we should beat Spain, shouldn't we?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very even game. Spain have got a lot of problems in their camp. They had quite a few players who refused to come and play. I think they don't like the coach. There seems to be a big problem with the coach of the national team and the players. So that is where the problem is for them. But they're still very, very good. So it's a very even game. I think the bookmakers make Spain slight favourites, in fact. It's that close. So, but I think England can do it. I really do. I think the squad, look, we're very much together, and I don't see any reason why we can't win the World Cup.
Morning, Harry. It's Paul here. I've got a kind of a crazy question for you, but...
Oh, good morning.
It's good to see you. Talking about managers, though, the difference between... We've got Sarina Wiegman, who everybody seems to love and has this huge success. And we're talking about Jorge a little bit earlier and being the Spanish manager and the problems that he's had. What's the most important thing for you about being a successful manager? It's not just football, is it? It's so much to do with how you deal with people.
Well, you need good players first and foremost. Hang on, it's just some friends of mine that come in. Clive, if you could please be quiet. He don't stop talking, my mate. So yeah, we need obviously you need good players, but also the manager has to get the best out of the players, and that's what our manager does with his team. She's been absolutely fantastic.
You know, lots of plaudits coming in from the likes of the King, the Prince of Wales. Even talk if perhaps we were to win on Sunday, should we have a bank holiday? I mean, we're talking about 30 years of hurt, all these years of hurt since a World Cup final and since a World Cup win. What do you think this will mean to us if we can do it?
Yes, let's have a bank holiday. Why not? Give everybody another day off.
Like you need another one, Harry.
At home anyway. Let's have a month's bank holiday.
How would you? Go on. I'm up for that, absolutely. But as far as the women's game, because I know you lived in the States for a while, didn't you, a few years back and playing over there. Women's football, it was bigger there then, wasn't it, than anywhere else? Have we overtaken, do you think, America, as far as popularity of the women's game now?
Well, I don't know. Listen, I'm not sure the crowds every Sunday or whenever the girls play, how big a crowds they're drawing still. I mean, this will be filled of stadiums for the England games for sure. But the actual games on, you know, I still think they need to play the games at the stadiums. I think that, you know, Tottenham need to play their games at the new Tottenham Stadium, West Ham, Arsenal, Chelsea, whoever. I think they should be playing the games on the day when the first team are not, the men's team are not playing, and then play the ladies' game on the, you know, whether it's a Saturday or Sunday, because the pitches nowadays, they don't cut up anyway. You're not going to do any damage. The pitches can take 2 games in 2 days. Let the ladies get them into the stadiums. I think that will be a big push forward for the game. That needs to happen.
What sort of a kick, if they do win, if the fact they've even got to a final, how big of a kick is this to the men's team? Because it's a bit of healthy competition, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're long overdue to win something with the men's team. I think we should have won something by now with this group of players we've got. You know, we've got an amazing men's players, young players come through, and I think we really should have either won the World Cup or the Euros by now. So if the girls can do it, it would give the guys a real kick up the backside and say, come on, it's about time you won something now. So hopefully we can go into the next tournament and we can do the double. Let's hope, but let's get this one won first. This is a big one on Sunday. Let's get this one done.
And look, there are going to be lots of little girls all around the world watching this tournament. I know you've got a granddaughter. Do you think we are seeing a change in the outlook of young women, particularly in this country, wanting to kick a ball about? I mean, is Molly into football?
No, well, she likes the football. Yeah, no, she doesn't play. Molly's she's 23 now, so she's not a footballer, no. But the young ones are. I mean, they're coming up with it more now. The young kids at school are playing. So yeah, it's great. It's a great exercise. Great, you know, get out and play. They proved that they can play. They've got the skill. Everything about the game is good. I mean, the skill factor's been amazing to watch. So there's no reason that, more and more young girls playing and getting great fun out of playing football.
One more. I've got to ask you, Harry, what do you like when you're watching it? Because a lot of us that go crazy and we're shouting, but I mean, being a professional as you are, do you watch it like as a man, as a professional, or can you watch it as a fan and do you go nuts when the goal's going?
You've got 20 seconds, Harry.
I get excited when we score, obviously, but yeah, whatever game I watch, whether it's, you know, the men's game or the ladies' game, I tend to I like to watch it in a room on my own.
Lovely stuff. Harry, Coity, thank you very much indeed.
Well done.
Lovely stuff. Here's Jonathan.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GBNews weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity though beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Still glowing in the Harry Redknapp warm.
Yeah, he's such an enthusiast, isn't he, for the game?
Nice man. Really
so many ideas coming in as well to name our piggy bank. We'll be revealing some of those and all the latest on our Don't Kill Cash campaign.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the big read, my superstar panel that are already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 17th of August. Today, GB News is taking the Don't Kill Cash campaign to Downing Street, which has accumulated nearly 300,000 signatures. It's in a bid to ensure cash remains legal tender until 2050.
Thousands of nervous students across the country opening their A-level results this morning, but grades are expected to drop for the second year running. This comes, of course, after the way that it was all handled in the pandemic meant there was a real spike in top marks over the last few years.
From desire, mind and senses purified, free from desire.
Freed from Desire, the 90s Eurodance track is the most popular track for goal music at this year's Women's World Cup, and we'll be joined by the artist behind the song, Gala.
And, of course, we've got your latest forecast with Jonathan.
After a good dose of summer yesterday for many of us, will that becoming a repeated pattern over the next few days? Join me later for the full weather details.
Very good morning to you. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Stephen Dixon, and this is Breakfast on GB News. And, of course, in our own big news this morning, we've hit 1 million YouTube subscribers on our GB News channel. And I've got to say, Tony Smith says it was her.
Oh, really?
She's got a clip of it going 1 million.
Oh.
I don't know if we can. From what you've sent me, she sent a bit of a winky emoji, so maybe she's not sure. But if we can find out who it was, we'll try and sort something out for you. if it's possible.
Yeah.
And you know, no promises on that, but we will try. In the meantime, a very big thank you to everyone who's subscribed, you know, and approving that we are a growing GB News family, including this fly in the studio.
Struggling with that. Right, and also we've been asking you this morning not only to make sure you subscribe on YouTube, but also to sign our petition, because we are handing in our Don't Kill Cash campaign to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, this afternoon. Now, more than 270,000 of you have so far signed that petition. We want to try and get it, don't we, to around 300,000 before this afternoon, if we can.
We do. Let me just have a quick look.
Where are we at?
There you go. Nothing like a bit of live telly. We're on 280,220. So see if you can top that up. And the reason it's important is there are more than 5 million of us in Britain who still really rely on cash. And we're calling for laws to protect its status as legal tender and as a widely accepted means of payment until at least 2050.
Well, let's speak to GB News economics and business editor Liam Halligan, who joins us live from Albert Embankment alongside his nameless piggy bank there, Liam. And I have to say, the ideas have been coming in thick and fast. Tracy says, I'd like to name them Piggy Scratch. Anne says, Percy. See what I've done there? As in Percy Pig, but also play on the word purse. And the best one, I think, has come from Elaine so far. My suggested name for Liam's piggy is Miss Moneypenny. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I think they're all good. We've got some other ones coming in here. Julie says penny, sixpence or tuppence. Wendy says prue, as in prudence. Irene says trotter. And here's one I really like. Grant suggests sterling, as in pound sterling, spelt S-T-E-R, of course. But it reminded me of the old racing driver Sterling Moss. And how about Sterling Dosh?
Ooh.
You heard it here first on GB News. Look, yeah, I'm claiming that. I'm claiming that on live telly. Look, this is a really interesting day for GB News. Not only have we just topped 1 million YouTube subscribers, a huge achievement for a news organisation that's barely 2 years old. In the last hour, as you say, Isabel, we've added 5,000 signatures from GB News viewers and listeners to our campaign petition, Don't Kill Cash. gbnews.com/cash, and you can click a button there in order to support our petition. Why are we doing this? Why have we got this inflatable blow-up piggy bank here? Because there are 5 million people in the UK who rely on cash every day. There are 10% of UK households who don't have regular access to the internet. Lots of us don't have smartphones. Over 1 million of us don't have bank accounts. Many people here in the UK who can't access digital payment mechanisms, who don't shop online, who want to use cash. And yet we know, don't we? We know from our investigative reporting, we know from living our lives and from many emails from GB News viewers and listeners that a lot of businesses, they don't want to take cash anymore. They don't want the cash handling costs. We know that a lot of the banks are closing down branches across our high streets, which makes it harder to access cash. And we know that a lot of the tech giants who want us to shop online want to monitor everything that we do. They want to track our behaviour. They can then sell that information to companies who can market other stuff for us to buy that often we don't need. That's why we've launched this campaign, Don't Kill Cash. We will, as you say, Stephen, be handing in our petition to number 11 Downing Street, live on air GB News this lunchtime. We've already got over 100,000 signatures, of course. That means we are entitled to petition that building behind me, yep, the Houses of Parliament, to hold a debate on the floor of the House about this issue. Let's get to 300,000 by this lunchtime, so when we talk to number 11, we can say we have put on 25,000 signatures this morning alone from GB News viewers and listeners. This is a big issue for a lot of people, a lot of lower income households, a lot of vulnerable households, and a lot of the elderly don't have smartphones. They want to use cash.
I tell you what I find interesting in this, Liam, is the different perspectives, because you're quite right, for a lot of ordinary people, as we're just going about our daily business, we think, well, we want to spend cash in the shops, we want to have that choice, that access. But if you delve deeper into this, it raises real questions about what happens if we have a digital-only economy in the sense that, well, we know there are charges for using credit cards that retailers pay. If there's only credit cards, well, I mean, potentially they could up those charges to whatever they want. They've got an absolutely captive audience. There are a whole load of implications here.
There certainly are, Stephen. I did a piece on GB News, had a film on GB News last week about exactly this issue, and that's why the Federation of Small Businesses, a hugely influential lobby group, speaking up for small businesses, independent retailers across the UK. They've now backed our campaign for precisely that reason, because a lot of the self-employed, a lot of smaller companies, they do rely on these payment companies in order to process card payments. These payment companies, they're only meant to take 1–1.5%. Many of them are taking 4–5%, and that's with cash still in existence. If the competition of cash isn't there and it's a receding competitive force in the payments business, then these card companies, there's very few of them, they could easily up rates. That's not me saying that, that's the Federation of Small Businesses worrying about the monopoly power of the card payment companies if we move away from cash. To say nothing of all the surveillance issues if you can't use cash. And say nothing also of the cultural issues. How about, you know, a tenner in your Christmas card when your uncle slips a kid a fiver at a birthday party? This is part of the joy of life, putting a couple of quid in a busker's guitar case. None of this is possible if we don't have cash. So for all these reasons, Stephen, GB News is backing this campaign. We want cash to remain legal tender. There are powerful vested interests who want to remove cash completely, to force us into becoming, faster than we should be, a cashless society. It's inevitable, the onset of digital payment methodologies, but there are still millions and millions of households in this country who don't want to use card payments, who can't use card payments, who rely on cash, who need cash, who want to kill cash. So let's not kill, you want to keep cash, so let's not kill cash. Let's get that petition signed, so when we talk to the Treasury this lunchtime, we can say, GB News viewers and listeners across the UK, Britain's fastest growing media organisation, they want you, Chancellor, to back this campaign.
Liam, thank you very much indeed. Whilst you've been talking, 1,400 more people have signed up, so it's having an impact. Thanks very much, Liam. We'll see you later.
And Sterling Dosh?
Sterling Dosh is the front runner, it has to be said.
So.
And you know what so many people have said to me, Stephen, and I don't know about you, they're a bit guilty, as I am, of probably not using cash as much as we should, and it's forced people to really think about how they would feel if cash wasn't an option. And I suppose it's kind of put an imperative on all of us to make sure that we, you know, not only sign the petition, but start using cash and vote with our feet on this.
Yeah, the more we use it, the more it'll stay. I think that's a very good point. Very good point. Anyway, still to come for you this morning. Oh, what a track.
Well, yeah, one of the greatest tracks of all time, Freed From Desire. It is the 90s Eurodance track that's the most popular version to play during all of the goal celebrations in the Women's World Cup. We'll be speaking to the artist behind it after this.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's A-level results day. Do you remember your A-level results day?
Terrifying. 1992.
You remember the year? I'm not even sure I can remember the year.
1992. I met up with my friend Lee Williams. Me and her went off together and then got our results. And I think afterwards we went back
Big
to
night out.
No, well, we went back to her house. I think her mum had got some vodka out.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's a sort of rite of passage. You have the nerves the night before, you have the results, and then you have the celebrations or the commiserations.
My mum took me to the pub for something to eat afterwards, which was a real treat to have some food out, and she got drunk. She was so relieved. Well, I'd gone on to... the only course I'd accepted was a brand-new course in broadcast journalism. There were only 28 places on it, and I'd turned everything else down. So
right.
I want to do that one.
All your eggs in one basket.
She was so... so my poor mother was so relieved.
Oh, bless her. But she lined your stomach ready for the vodka, so that was smart parenting from your mum. Well, lots of you getting in touch. Thank you, Isabel and Stephen. I'm currently a first-year A-level student. I agree that us students aren't properly shown the other pathway outside of university. I also hope to study journalism and know there are many internships and apprenticeships, and that's something we've been really flagging this morning.
Yeah, that's from Charlie.
And it's something that perhaps that the universities need to start thinking about competing with. Let's see what Claire Merchant makes of all of this. She is the CEO of Ucas. A busy morning for you, Claire. You've been doing some number crunching this morning. Lots of speculation about the numbers of students who will be missing out today on their first choice university as a result of grade deflation. What are you seeing from the numbers so far?
Actually, a really positive picture. So 79% of students today are actually going to their first choice university, which is to be really celebrated. It's up around 5% in 2019, slightly down on last year, but that's what we expected as return to normal grading. So a day to celebrate, as you say, for them. Our job at Ucas is to support those that changed their mind or indeed didn't quite get the grades they wanted. But as you said, lots and lots of different options still available to them.
Yeah, well including what? I mean, in terms of the actual clearing system and getting onto their second choice, what have you, is that looking very positive for those people who want to go to uni?
It is looking positive in terms of we've got currently 29,000 courses available, and we've also got 8,000 apprenticeships, so all of that available via Ucas. My only word of caution is just, when they can add that clearing choice later today, just to be really aware that some of those really competitive courses, your law, your psychology, competitive institutions are just likely to go quickly, so be prepared.
Could you shed some light on the balance of the number of British students going through clearing today versus those international students that will be going through clearing? Because I believe with current trends, if they carry on by 2030, British universities will be more funded by foreign students than our own school leavers. There is an increasing number, isn't there, of these lucrative international students using clearing today?
So the focus today is very much on undergraduates, and so those going at age 18, 19 into university. And what we're seeing today is actually a reduction in terms of the international students going. That might change over the coming weeks and months, because obviously we've got a long time between now and the autumn when term starts. But at the moment, it is a reduction in terms of international students. Of course, a lot of what plays out of the next 5, 6, 7 years will depend on, geopolitics and how we compare to other countries that students want to study at, be it the USA, Australia, Canada.
And what is happening in terms of the apprenticeships that Ucas is dealing with? And I don't know how new that is. It certainly wasn't the case back in my day. But how does that work, and how do you handle that?
It wasn't the case back in my day either, so really exciting for young people. The fact that we've got degree and higher apprenticeships by some really top-notch employers, whether that's one of the big consulting and accountancy firms or it's something in manufacturing like a Dyson or a Jaguar Land Rover, really, really exciting. And actually, we are encouraging teaching advisors to open that up to students as an option. As I said, 8,000 at different levels, but of course at different points during the year, we'll have many, many more than that as well, because apprenticeships recruit throughout the year.
OK, Claire, we'll let you go. You've got a really busy day. CEO of Ucas, and I have to say, I still remember filling in my Ucas form back at school and the nerves that were involved in all of that. So speaking to the boss of Ucas, I still feel very deferential
So you should, so you should. Let's head to Jack Carson, who's at a sixth form in Wales for us. Morning, Jack.
Yeah, good morning. I'm at the Blind Eye Gwent Learning Zone here in Wales. I'm with student Millie Takehall. Millie, explain to us a little bit this morning, because of course students are going to be opening the results, but actually you found there's a problem actually logging in, because so many people are trying to get the results this morning. You've not actually been able to get them.
Yeah, it seems as if the website has crashed a little bit. It's just been a blank screen all morning. I only found out that I've actually got into university through an email from Ucas. So it's a bit annoying when you're just trying to find out what grades you have, but yeah.
But how do you feel knowing that even though you might not have your specific results, you've still got into your university?
I'm absolutely over the moon. It's been amazing. I did shed a few tears this morning when I first found out. It's a dream come true.
And how were actually doing the exams like? Because of course we know that your cohort of students has been impacted from the pandemic, from your GCSEs. So sitting these formal exams, what was that experience like?
It was very scary being our first proper exams. Very, very difficult. But we've had immense amounts of support from all of our tutors and teachers, so it's not been too bad, but still very, very stressful.
OK, Millie, thanks so much for joining us on GB News this morning. That's a picture here in Wales of students trying to get the results but finding a few problems this morning.
Yeah.
Interesting.
OK, Jack, thanks very much indeed. Let's change tack, should we? Free from desire.
Well, maybe lots of A-level students will be doing the goal celebration that's the most popular at the World Cup as well today.
Why on earth are the Women's World Cup gold celebrations for all these countries a song from the 1990s?
Why not?
It was huge at the time.
Still
I danced around a few clubs to that, let me tell you. Which is why I've got particular pleasure in introducing Gala Rossato, singer and songwriter of that incredible double platinum track. It's great to see you this morning. Why on earth do you think it's taken off at the World Cup?
Well, I don't know the exact reason why it's being used in the World Cup, but, I can tell you that, let's say I'm not surprised that the people brought it back. There is a justice behind this story that I am the only one who can see as the artist and writer. The song, actually, the meaning of the song it's a very complex. It sounds like a very simple song, but it's not a simplistic song at all. There was a lot of thinking, a lot of intention behind it, a lot of meaning. At the time, I moved to New York City, and I noticed the incredible disparities among people and the inequality that I didn't notice as much growing up in Europe. And in New York, they were so evident. And I started reading a lot about Buddhism and Taoism, and it was for sure a fight the power song, a social criticism to this wheel that keeps us wanting more, getting more, buying more, always thinking that the future will bring some sort of happiness that doesn't really arrive from the material per se. And so the song is a song about fighting the power, but it also has an energy behind it that I remember, it is, I remember having at the time, but it's actually a little bit the essence of who I am. That is this resilience and this desire to align with your beliefs and align with your passion before you're looking for anything, before you're trying to go in the world and grab something. The power that we have as people is to align with our meaning here in this world.
Well, it was pushing boundaries then, Gala Izzato, just as the women in the World Cup are indeed pushing boundaries with women's football, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why it's been so popular and such a positive track as well. And we certainly hope it bodes well for our Lionesses as they head to the final against Spain, from where you're speaking to us this morning on Sunday morning. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. It's a cracking track, isn't it?
I love it. And I tell you what I do like hearing is the cicadas behind you, Gala.
Oh, yeah, that's a lovely
lovely, hot, gorgeous. Thank you very much indeed. Great to see you.
Thank you.
I think it takes me back. Takes me back. Lovely stuff. Right. That is it from us on Breakfast.
Yes,
but up next...
indeed. Up next, we have Tom and Ellie with Britain's Newsroom, with their finger on the pulse of all that's happening up and down the country.
Yes, that's right. Coming up at 9:30, it's Britain's Newsroom with me and Tom. Of course, we're going to be talking about that fantastic game yesterday. The Lionesses, they won. It was that nerve-wracking game, though, wasn't it, Tom?
It was indeed. Well, especially for that 1-1 moment. But it's not just nerve-wracking, nail-biting, looking forward to Sunday. It's also a nail-biting day for many up and down this country who've received their A-level results this morning. Results down this year in England, although similar in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to those inflated pandemic years. It's going to be a really interesting time to see how people can manage with this uneven landscape of results.
Absolutely. We're also going to be talking Don't Kill Cash, so don't miss it, 9:30.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GBNews.
Hello there, very good morning to you. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Most of us can look forward to a relatively fine and dry day, and there is a good dose of sunshine generally if you are further towards the west and the south first thing this morning, but a little stubborn cloud across northeast England into Scotland. That will break up as we head into the afternoon, so more sunny intervals developing. And if you do catch the sunshine, still feeling pleasantly warm, 24, 26 degrees Celsius possible inland, but there's a bit more of a breeze around, so particularly for eastern coastal areas it will feel a touch cooler compared to yesterday. Into the overnight period as well, we'll start to see the cloud building in again from the North Sea, from Lincolnshire up into eastern Scotland, and then much more widespread cloud building in from the southwest as well. So a bit more of a mild night to come, generally around 13 to 15 degrees Celsius as our lows. The humidity, though, beginning to build as all this rain begins to push in from the southwest. Some heavy outbreaks for Northern Ireland, Wales, England, perhaps some rumbles of thunder in there as well. It will peter out into the afternoon, so Scotland tending to stay that bit dry with some sunny intervals, and there's a bit of a slice from South Wales into southwest England where it will turn drier as well. 26 degrees Celsius as the max for today, but as I said, the humidity is certainly building. And there's further rain on the cards for the overnight period as this area of low pressure begins to push its way in and could provide a pretty unsettled end to the working week. Isobars squeezing together as well to provide some gusty winds in places. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing.